Good evening, all, and welcome back to National Speedway, where the journey to the 2026 PGR 500 rolls on tonight. It has been chaos and calamity so far this week. Coke drivers that haven't made it, underdogs in their first big event that are going to have a shot to race in the LCQs and duels on Saturday. We've got so much to talk about. It's been an exciting start to the week, and we are getting ready to kick another night of racing off here with heats 9 through 11. We want to welcome you in here, but before we get up to our commentators in the booth tonight, we want to thank all of our sponsors that help make the PGR 500 possible, including our flagship sponsor, That Towing Company, for all their continued support, including our title sponsor, Chris Carter Racing, for all they do, along with Flying Aces TV. NBG Motorsports, one of our associate sponsors. You will see them featured throughout the rest of the week. And Dad Bod Studios with Justin Johnson, who we saw racing this time yesterday. And we do, of course, have some sponsor spotlights to go through here tonight. We want to start with the Heat Race 9 sponsor, and it is brought to you proudly by Buildup on Twitch, your home for nonstop iRacing, money races, and pure chaos on the super speedways. Tune in and watch Jack Shack driver Evan Carlbon wheel it week after week against the best of the best. High stakes, big packs, zero lift, hard-nosed, action-packed racing, shaking, baking, and flat out sending it all the way to the line. We want to now welcome you in up in the booth. I'm Austin Green. Joining me tonight is my partner in crime, Dawson Wise. Tyler Vickery will be doing our pit reporting once again, and we want to give a big thanks to our producer, Christian Hill, for all the hard work he will be doing behind the scenes. Well, Dawson, here we are back at Daytona, slowly getting closer to the feature event on Sunday, but we've got some more heats tonight that drivers are going to have to fight through.
Well, absolutely, Austin. What a week it has been to this point, the historic Daytona International Speedway, and it rolls on tonight with night number 4 of heat racing. And the story this week, you mentioned the guys that are out. I want to talk about the guys that have gotten themselves in heat race victory lane. There have been some upset winners this week that have broken the mold of what we expected in terms of guys going to victory lane in their heat races. The pole shootout field certainly is different than what I expected going into this week. Again, you saw the heat schedule there. 3 more tonight, 1 more tomorrow, and then we really start to narrow down the field. The pole shootout tomorrow night. We're 24 hours away. That's going to be a fun one right back here at Daytona. And then Saturday is the marathon. 2 last chance qualifiers, 2 dual races, and of course the granddaddy of them all, the feature race, Sunday afternoon, 500 miles for PGR's largest prize of all time. It's going to be a lot of fun. And as we get ready to go down to track level and meet the grid for heat race number 9, what a week it has been. And Austin, I can't wait to see what we have for us tonight.
A lot of excitement building into this one. 144 drivers already eliminated, but here tonight, we're going to kick things off with your starting grid here for heat race number 9. Matthew Zwack going to start on the front row. If you remember his great finish in last year's PGR 500, he'll have an ERA. Former Omega Cup Spring Bowl winner Cody Nagels. He's talked all week about how much this race would mean for him to win. He rolls off on the outside in second. Jarrett Liebert rolls off back in third. It's going to be Kyler Wynn, another one of the big-time money racers. He'll roll off in fourth. He has won the the Podium 500 before. Mark Person back to the 5th spot. It's going to be Brandon Broadfoot to his outside in 6th. Grady Graham rolls off to the 7th spot tonight. He'll have Josh Cruz to his outside in 8th. It's going to be Anton Polyakov back in 9th, and Matt L. Cox rounding out the top 10.
06 is going to be a combination of Ty Stone in the 25 and Beckett Brown in car number 00. Back on row number 7, starting in the 13th position, is going to be Sean Corbett, one of the longtime money racers in the 45. Alongside him, his teammate tonight, Danny Barnes, in car number 7. Row 8, Brandon Lopez in the 5 tonight on your timing and scoring. And alongside him, it's the 75 of Tobias Matheson. Row 9, going to be Jacob Booth in car number 19. Alongside him, it's Kevin Haas in car number 8. And rounding out the top 20, it's Matthew Campbell in the 82. Alongside him, it's Stephen Harry in car number 69.
Back in row number 11 here tonight, it's going to be Cooper Cockrell starting on the inside in 21st with Randall Peasley to his outside in 22nd. Cody Rhodes will roll off 23rd. Richard Elliott to his outside in 24th. That's another one of the money racing veterans. Back at 25th is going to be Clay Sarton. Alan Martin to his outside in 26th. And it'll be Zachary Harry and Kelly Walton rounding out the rest here of heat number 9. And looks like, Dawson, we are going to get an extra pace lap here for guys to get ready and geared up to go. But we talk about these heats, same setup here, 30 laps, 100% fuel. 1 green-white checkered attempt, which we have needed in every single heat so far. And of course, you've got that 1 faster pair, which has been crucial with all the chaos we've seen so far this week.
Yeah, the one fast repair has come into play for a number of drivers so far this week, and you mentioned the word calamity. That's kind of been the theme of the week to this point in terms of drivers advancing into the transfer spots, being eliminated from the transfer spots, but just in general, a lot of drivers have had to come down pit road and get damage fixed and utilize that one fast repair. Now that will go away when we get into the Saturday races coming up here in about 48 hours, but for now you do have one do-over, as I like to call it, or a mulligan, if you will, tonight that could save you from an incident in this race. Obviously, you will not be able to lean on that here going forward, but again, it's been so helpful because there's been so much chaos. I know coming into this event that we expected some chaos. I cannot say we expected quite as much chaos as we have seen, and most of it has happened inside the final 5 laps of the race multiple times this week. Drivers have gone into the final lap inside a transfer spot and ended that final lap outside the transfer spot. Sure that is on the minds of all of the drivers in the field tonight. By the way, a lot of big names here in this one to open the night in heat race number 9.
Absolutely. The first two that come to mind, Matthew Zwack, Cody Nagels, who are going to start on the front row here. But, that's a good point, Dawson. Dylan Alt was the first Coke Series driver to finally break the streak. He found victory lane last night in the final heat race of the night. But for a lot of other guys like Malik Ray, Colin Keister, these are names that we expected to be moving on potentially straight to the duels. But they're not even going to be making it to the LCQs. So everybody has had a chance so far this week. This is obviously one of the more stacked heats, and we are looking forward to it. And the lights are off on the pace car, so we are getting ready to go green this time. And before we do, want to welcome in, again, a couple of our other sponsors that you'll see throughout the rest of the week. One of them being our Restart Zone sponsor, Simrat Market. We'll talk about them throughout the week. And our Yellow Flag sponsor, which is powered by the NASRA 360 Racing Network. Well, a couple of new paint schemes on board here tonight, most notably for Cody Nagels. We talked to him pre-race, and he mentioned how much this race would mean for him to win. He's, of course, won the ERA Omega Cup Spring Bowl. He's got a former Podium 500 champion and a recent MRL 500 champion, and Kyler Wynn behind him. So this is going to get good. Pace car is going to pull off. Time to get this thing going. First heat of the night as the field rolls into the Simrat Market Restart Zone. Here we go. Green flag in the air. We are racing at Daytona.
The field rockets onto the Daytona Super Stretch for the first time of day 4 of the PGR 500, and it's a very familiar name to PGR fans that will rocket to the lead. Cody Nagels in the 6 for Nightmare eSports works the banking of turn 3 in a brand new look aboard that 6 machine. Looking for one of the biggest wins of his sim racing career this week. His run begins tonight. What a pusher he's got behind him. Moment for Broadfoot. Broadfoot out of shape. Trouble out back in the middle of the field. They're going to go around towards the back. Multiple cars into the outside safer barrier, and involved, I think, was Sean Corbett. Perhaps a different looking yellow car that was involved in that one, and Outback Calamity on lap 2.
Jacob Booth is involved in the 19th. Stephen Harry's got damage as he slides to a halt over in the tri-oval. And your first caution of the night, powered by the NASRA 360 Racing Network, is out on the racetrack here. We've got one car still stuck in the tri-oval. But man, early chaos. We didn't see this as much last night as what we had the previous couple of nights, but the trend has started once again early. This is going to give everybody a fresh restart, and we'll have to go back and see if this is going to lead to a couple of early fast repairs for some of the drivers involved. And, Dawson, obviously, a lot of nerves here at the start of these. We've talked about that throughout the week, and I got to think for some of these guys, it's just the antsiness. You're trying to push. There's so much going on in the draft. It's so easy to make a small mistake, and this could be the result.
Yeah, it's actually going to start towards the front of the field, and you talked about nerves. I think we saw a bout of that with Brandon Broadfoot running up inside the top 6 in the red, black, and blue number 22 machine. He was the first car I saw get a little bit out of shape. And then from there, the stack up gets back to around the booth car, and it was just completely on from there for guys in the back. Stephen Harry, by the way, was the yellow car that I saw. It was not Sean Corbett, so I do want to correct that. Corbett's still well within the lead draft in 11th, but Harry was the first car. He and Booth were the first 2 cars that I saw get around. There's another couple cars that are involved in this towards the tail end of the field. There's Harry, the silver, orange, and yellow Toyota in the center. And look at this stack up as it gets back there. Actually, a couple more cars come together. As those guys are looking forward to try to miss the incident going on in front of them, they come together in the same real estate, and there are multiple other cars that are involved in this one. Cooper Cockrell gets a piece of it, and the 818 of Kelly Walton gets a piece of it, as well as the 02 of Richard Elliott may have been partially involved in this as well. We get another angle of what was going on up towards the front. That's the Poliakov machine, the 4, that when the stack-up starts with Broadfoot, watch this. He's going to get squeezed in the middle, and as he tries to regain his car, watch out back. There's Harry and Booth. They come together, again, watching too far forward. They were watching to try to see what was going to happen, and it was on from there for the 3 cars at the back of the field.
And it was all sparked by trying to push in the corner. We talk about the risk associated with it. It looked like the 52, though, of Grand was pretty squared up. Whatever the issue was, though, he got Broadfoot out of shape. And then it was that big checkup, as you mentioned, Dawson, that puts us under caution here for the first time tonight. We'll get you back live now and get the field reset and ready to go. By the way, yellow flags, again, powered by the NASCAR Racing Network. They've got a big event coming up. The NASCAR 6 Hours of Le Mans takes place on March 7th. If you're looking for 6 hours of strategy, teamwork, and endurance, go check that event out. You can catch all of it live only on the NASCAR 360 Racing Network. Well, no big changes up front since the start of the race, so it'll be a very similar restart to what we had for the initial start, Dawson. But for Nagels and Wynn, so far, they're in the green. Cody picked up a spot from where he qualified, of course, on the outside pole. And then Kyler Wynn will now be restarting on the front row, as it looks like he's going to have Jarrett Liebert as the pusher behind him.
Yeah, a pair of guys that know each other well. Nagels and Wynn are the guys out front of the field. No surprise there that those two wanted to go and be aggressive and run up front early. You mentioned Liebert, good run for him. It's a PGR return of sorts for Liebert. He is running a couple of these special events now in that all-black 025. So good to see him back in the field tonight in Heat 9, as he is actually -1 on the running order right now, but still well inside the transfer positions. Matthew Zwack, we expected to see him aggressive. You'll remember he has started both of the PGR crown jewels to this point, or at least both in 2025. He started outside pole in the PGR 500 last year and started up front in the SummerSlam 499 back in August, looking to get to victory lane in one of these races, though. Reminder, he was the 2nd place finisher to Daniel Falkingham here a year ago in the first Great American Sim race. So Zwack looking for one better. Nagels Wynn obviously would like to get in on that action, as well as Liebert. And how about the story for Mark Person? Mark Person in the MRL 500 last week wins a dual race and contends over 500 miles against some of these same guys. An impressive run certainly puts him on the radar for this week as well.
And for Person, he's got PGR eSports colors on board of his number 77 tonight. And field back to 2x2. Lights are off on that iRacing.com pace car, so we will be going back to green flag racing this time. And if you're just joining us, again, we appreciate you being here. You are watching Heats 9 through 11 here in the journey to the PGR 500. We've got 2 more heats coming up tonight. Just get things kicked off here. 4 of 30 laps complete. We'll be going back green here with 5 of 30 in the books. And as you look at that inside line, pretty stout field in general, but I'm keeping an eye on some of these guys further back that have already been tearing their way through the field. Sean Corbett, obviously a very experienced and veteran money racer. He is currently up 4 spots from where he started this race at. Danny Barnes is up 3. You go back a couple more spots. How about Matt Campbell? He's picked up 4 spots from where he started this race at. But again, only 10 will transfer in. So if you finish 11th on back, doesn't matter how many spots you made up, you will not have a chance to continue in trying to make it to the PGR 500. Well, for Kyler and Cody, we heard the game plan, Dawson, coming in, that they were going to work together. They haven't had much of a chance to do it so far tonight, but with what we've seen out back, I think I like that idea. If you're some of these guys up front, maybe try to play a little bit of cooperation. If it comes down to the end and you got a shot at it, sure, maybe race for it. We know there's $60 on the line, but at the end of the day, the guys that know how to win big events are the ones that know how to survive to get into it. All right, let's try this once again. Pace car going to make the left turn. Field now back in control of Cody Nagels and Kyler Wynn. They're going to roll back into the restart zone as green flag will go back into the air. 5 laps complete at Daytona, and it's a good restart for the 6 and Nagels. He'll beat Kyler Wynn through the gears, and this is going to give him the opportunity to jump up. Big move to the high side right out of the gate. Nagels is going to cover the momentum, and look at all the gaps out back. Rest of the field's got to organize, and the question is, which lane will have the momentum as they climb into turn 1?
It was the inside with Zwack. They will get sidetracked in now. Zwack gets the push from Person. Nagels, though, has the better help out back. That's Kyler Wynn in line with him. Then it is Liebert. Then it is Josh Cruz, his first chance to get to the front tonight. Same can be said about the Bears Mustang, fifth in line. That's Matt Cox. Cox, another super speedway guy. He has won on these tracks before, and another house driver for the Team Watson Racing setups group that helped build this setup. Got to imagine that's some form of advantage for the 32 of Cox. Field works off turns 3 and 4. Clear back to Cox now as Zwack has worked all the way back to row 6 alongside Sean Corbett for the 6th spot. Cox hangs a left. He goes in front of Zwack as the field gets back to the line. 25 to go. Push still coming to him, but the bottom is starting to get connected. They're going to start to roll forward in the same pattern we saw last night. The outside gets a little bit of run, then the inside gets a little bit of run. It's a bit of a chess game as to which line will move at which point in the race.
And a good mix of Chevys, Fords, and Toyotas in this lead pack right now. Do want to mention everybody throughout this entire week going to be rocking the sporty TWRS racing setups. And we appreciate them for coming on board and providing what has been a phenomenal setup so far this week. Kyler Wynn now back to the bottom of the racetrack. He timed that move up about as good as you could go. Big push from Matt Cox is going to send the 82 to the lead. Meanwhile, further back, Sean Corbett, we talked about him moving his way through the field. He's now up to about 4th on the outside line, but he's not going to be able to go any further yet. Third lane has not been able to develop up to this point, but already down to 24 laps to go, and it has been 2x2 up front.
Yeah, no 3-wide move yet, which is very interesting to me. In last night's couple of heats that had a little bit bigger names in them, we saw early 3-wide moves. I think of Malik Ray on day 2. I think of Raja Karuth back on day 1. I think of a couple guys last night. Ethan Eckert did it all the way to his heat race trouble. Out back, multiple cars into the outside wall. It's another crash. Multi-car incident on the middle of the back straightaway as several come sliding to a stop place. Sarton is involved in the 27. Malik Lopez has gotten a piece, as has Cooper Cockrell. Kevin Haas appears to be involved. There's a couple of more sliding to the inside. There's the Haas machine, the Budweiser Chevrolet. As another multi-car incident erupts on lap 7.
Yes, second caution of the night, well before the halfway point here. And I think, Dawson, I'll wait till we obviously get a replay to break it down for sure, but it almost looked live like it was maybe another case of pushing gone wrong, and it may have been the 52 car again. Obviously, we'll go back and get a look at that in just a moment, but for Haas, a little bit of damage on the front nose of his Chevy Camaro, so he'll have to go in and get some repairs. All right, here we go. This is as they were coming off of turn 2, and yes, you see the 52, that is Graham doing all the pushing to the back of the 27, and it's a little bit of a stack up, and right as he gets to his rear bumper, there's going to be just a little bit of contact that ultimately gets him turned around. Everybody slides down the backstretch and scatters to miss it. Ultimately, it's going to go down as about a 3-car incident, Dawson. Couple of hits, but it doesn't look like any race-ending damage for these guys.
They got pretty lucky that that one was towards the tail end of the field for the guys that slid across the racing surface to be able to slide harmlessly down to the apron and gather their cars up. You're on board now with Grady Graham. He was running right behind the Sarton machine. And again, it's a testament to how you have to run this new Gen 7 package where you have to push in line. If you want to move forward, your line has to push multiple cars deep, not only to fill gaps and not allow cars to jump in front of you, but also to gather the energy and generate the momentum that gets your line moving forward. Unfortunately, there, nothing necessarily that Graham did wrong. It's a little bit offset of a push to Clay Sarton. But again, that's just how you have to race. You have to be more aggressive at times with the pushes than a lot of guys were willing to be, rather, on the old package. A lot of times on the old Gen 7 package, you could kind of ride in line and follow a line to the front and not really have to push 7 cars deep. Now, you have to push that deep in line if you want your line to get moving towards the front.
And part of it's obviously the desperation, Dawson. We talk about these heats only being 30 laps. You got to get to the front as soon as you can. And part of the idea is if you get to the front, you can avoid all this chaos out back. But man, for the 52, it's been a rough start to the night, so we'll have to see if Grady Graham can get it back together here and get that car back to the front. We saw him running good here early in heat race number 9. But once we do get the field lined up, it will once again be Kyler Wynn and Cody Nagels here on the front row for this restart, with Matt Cox and Jarrett Liebert back in row 2. Matthew Zwack still well up inside the top 5. Josh Cruz, Mark Person, Sean Corbett, Beckett Brown, and Brandon Broadfoot all back inside the top 10. How about Broadfoot, Dawson? I know he's down 4 spots from where he started this race at, but he obviously almost had that big issue with the first caution tonight. He was able to be kind of on the front end of it, so he survived getting any major damage, but he's still up here running with these guys. And for Broadfoot, we talk about some underdog winners. This would be huge if Broadfoot could lock himself into the duels here tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Brandon Broadfoot coming over tonight to run the PGR 500, a longtime PGR veteran looking to make the start in the Great American Sim Race this week. We talked about the bit of nerves that he might have had on the opening incident, I think those are gone now. You're 9 laps into this race. You're locked in, and the nerves have transitioned to the adrenaline. We've heard a lot of guys talk about adrenaline. I think that's what you're feeling now. If you're Brandon Broadfoot, a great onboard look, by the way, as to Brandon Broadfoot's setup for this week. See the triple monitor set up for him as he tries to work his way into the PGR 500. He's into a spot right now where he's back inside the transfer position. So for Broadfoot, this is kind of where you want to be. Got to imagine he, though, wants to come forward a little bit further than 10th. That's danger zone. Broadfoot, you imagine, will be on the move right here.
Absolutely, and as we get things set to go, it has been a chaotic week so far. We've seen, again, a lot of drivers that maybe coming into this we didn't necessarily think would be a 1-2 finisher here in these heats. And some of those names that, come to mind right away, Dawson, you think about a DJ Thomas, Hunter Hasty. I mean, these are veteran guys, but coming into these big events, they're usually a little bit more patient. They're a little bit more quiet. We saw the aggression, though, that really paid off in some of the heats that we've had so far this week. I look back to a Jackson Byes, Jacob Dunn. Those are some of the names that we more expected to be in the pole shootout. And, of course, we will see them racing on Friday. Rajah Caruth going to be featured in that event as well. So I know we've still got, obviously, a handful of heats here left to go. But I think a lot of drivers starting to slowly begin the transition and starting to get focused on what we could see Friday night and, of course, Saturday with the LCQs and duels.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the guys that have already run, I think you have to think about Saturday. Obviously, those will be the biggest races of the weekend for the guys not racing tomorrow night. What a unique situation, though, for the 24 that will race tomorrow night in the pole shootout. It's an extra race on the weekend. There's a chance that you might have to race 4 times with the pole shootout race, whereas last year the only guys that raced 4 times were the ones that went to the last chance qualifiers. Now, several of them did advance out of the LCQ into the duel and then into the PGR 500, but a little bit different scenario this year where you'll still have to run 4 races, but that pole shootout is so important because not only will you have a spot in the duel no matter what, but you could advance right onto the front row. You could start up front, set the tone for the race. We know how important track position is. Again, as important as those last chance qualifiers and duels will be on Saturday, arguably to me, it is going to be more important to finish top 2 in that pole shootout tomorrow because you could skip Saturday altogether and start to set your mind for Sunday. It's such a huge advantage to go ahead and lock yourself into the field and have some momentum underneath you as well, headed into the Great American Sim Race.
And obviously the duels is where it really starts to get more serious too, even in the format. I mean, the heat's only 30 laps. Once you get to the duels, double that, 60 laps. There's going to be pit stops involved, so strategy comes into play. And that's when we'll also likely start to see some of the teams that we'll see in the feature begin to form up as well. The field now working through 3 and 4. Everybody getting a final check of the tires. We are getting ready to get back to it. It's going to be 20 laps to go here in heat race number 9 at Daytona. Field going to be in the control of Kyler Wynn and Cody Nagels once again. And for the guys in the back, not quite the pay window yet, but certainly got to start moving your way to the front. Field rolls into the Simrat marked and restart zone. Green flag back in the air, 20 laps to go, and this time it's Kyler Wynn who's going to get the better jump in the 82. Shades of what Cody Nagels did on the last restart. He's going to jump to the high side down the short chute.
Yeah, Kyler Wynn jumps up in front of Cody Nagels here on entrance to turn 1. Those two so far so good. For cars 82 and 6. You gotta imagine, considering some of the names that have gone home earlier this week, like a Malik Ray, like a Michael Guest, like a Michael Cozy, that are not advancing, you gotta think Wynn and Nagels, that's in the back of their minds. They want to stay ahead of the chaos. They don't want to fall into the position that those guys were in late in those heat races. And so far, they are able to do so well in control of the field of those two cars up on the top side. But here comes the challenge. It's on the bottom side. It's in the form of the Matt Cox machine with the Beast Mode performance entries in this race. A couple of others have already made their runs. Paul Gallimore actually advanced last night into the duels on Saturday. Cox to the inside door of Kyler Wynn. They'll battle 2x2 for the lead. Down the short chute into turn 1, the helper is Matthew Zwack on the bottom side of the racetrack. Of course, he's looking to break the curse, it seems, that's going on between the professional drivers this week. It has not been a good week for that group, save for Daniel Falkingham, and only because he has a provisional. Matthew Zwack looking to break that curse. He'll get a push from Beckett Brown here down the backstretch, but it's Matt Cox that vaults to the lead for the first time.
And he made that big move to the high side of the racetrack coming off turn 2, but Wynn says, I don't think so. The 82 is going to go back to the bottom, and that may be one of the best moves we've seen all week. Cody Nagels is able to tandem him up. The 82 is going to get clear. Cody, though, not going to be able to follow. This is going to hurt the momentum of the outside, but here comes Matthew Zwack back on the inside. He'll line up a push. along with some help from Beckett Brown. And this has been phenomenal so far, Dawson. Maybe the deepest pushing throughout both lines we have seen so far tonight. The outside's been pushing 4 and 5 deep. The inside's been able to get about 3 deep. And so far, we have not seen many issues with that pushing up front. It's been the guys towards about the middle and back portions of the pack. But for Cody Nagels, how about currently sitting third? He qualified up front and has been in the top 5 ever since.
Yeah, absolutely. And track position has been so important this week for these guys in this heat race, and we've seen it time and time again. The guys that start towards the front typically have been the ones to advance, whether into a duel or into just the LCQ. How about Matt Cox, though? His PGR debut this week in the PGR 500, and he turns left on one of the winningest drivers in PGR history, Kyler Wynn. Cox will try to go to the lead. He does have a little bit of front-end damage on that Mustang. He'll get pushed now by one of the most aggressive pushers that we have ever seen on the super speedway scene, Cody Nagels, to his aid, and it is paying off immediately. Look at the run this bottom lane gets on exit of turn number 2. He'll come even with Kyler Wynn as the outside just has not been able to rekindle the energy they had a moment ago. Cox will draw even. They'll battle for the lead up the banking, and look at how deep they're pushing. 4, 5, 6 cars deep on the bottom, able to get connected. Now they'll tandem up, and Cox will go back to the lead.
And now that 025 car finally going to have to breathe a little bit. Kyler Wynn's going to give him a little air to the engine of that race car. The bottom will get another chance. Big save. Kyler Wynn with a wiggle on the outside, but he's going to catch it. That kills the momentum. Nagels is going to jump back up. The 32 of Matt Cox led that lap. But now we have got a little bit more of a shuffle, and for the 32, he's got a little bit of damage to the front nose of that race car. You got to wonder, is that going to hurt the performance with him leading this inside line?
So far, it has not. Obviously, the push to Cody from Cody Nagels rather on the last lap got Cox all the way to the lead, but now Matthew Zwack. The temperatures are starting to become an issue, I think, on that bottom lane with the amount that Kyler Wynn and Cody Nagels were able to shuffle and get Kyler Wynn as the pusher with fresh engine temperatures. That's going to shuffle Matt Cox back in line now fourth, almost fifth on the inside as Danny Barnes thinks about taking a left. He will onto the nose of the Chicago Bears Mustang. So Barnes is down, that pink car right in front of Cox. First time we've seen Danny Barnes in the picture here. Same for Sean Corbett just in front of him now on the bottom, in behind the Matthews Zwack machine, or rather in front of the Matthews Zwack machine, who's been relegated outside the top 10 as they run. Cody Nagels up front, 3 wide. Matthews Zwack gets split. That's Booth. He was involved in the first caution. He's the first one to go to the safer barrier, but nobody goes with him. Now a shuffle as one car gets knocked out of line. That's back around the Booth machine. That's the 75 of Madison, but they're going the wrong direction. Back into 3. Up front, Nagels, Wynn continue to lead the outside. A new challenger's emerged on the bottom. It's Brandon Broadfoot in car number 22 as he pulls even for 5th.
And this inside is going to start to generate a big run. The 77 is hooked up. That's Mark Person. Big push coming off of turn 4 is going to get the 22. Even with Kyler Wynn in second, but it's still all Cody Nagels at the front of the field. We have crossed the halfway point, and that means just 14 laps to go here in heat race number 1. Third lane still has not been able to get formed up just yet. A couple guys keep going to it, but they're not able to get enough help to really make it work. I look back, though, towards right around the 52, Grady Graham. We've seen him be very aggressive so far tonight. Ty Stone, Jacob Booth. These are some of the guys that need to work together if they want to try to get to the front. And I know we've got a lot going on the racetrack so far here tonight, so we want to head down to our pit reporter, Tyler Vickery, for an update. Tyler, what do you got?
Yeah, thanks. And a lot of things going on with MS right now. A lot of the drivers that are racing with together, trying to get themselves in, which is Broadfoot, Corbett, Danny Barnes as well, and Richard Elliott, all talking about trying to make that third lane work. They have the drivers to be able to get up there, but it's all about survival right now until they can get within 10 to 5 laps to go and start making the push. The other thing that's been talked about as well is tech. Mainly because of the gearing. Some of these drivers are making mistakes in not shifting up to 5th gear. We had a situation last night where a driver was still in 4th gear, did not shift up to 5th gear, and lost a ton of momentum on one of the lines. So that's going to be another big factor in this race.
And Tyler, thank you for the update. Couple interesting notes there, Dawson. Before we talk about the issue with any sort of shifting, I want to note first about the MMS strategy, right? I mean, that's some of the most teammates we've heard in a heat race, and for them to say, we want to wait till the end of this thing, man, I just don't know if that's the best idea with how much chaos we've seen in the back half of the field to end some of these heat races.
Well, a few of those cars have come forward in this race. Notably, Broadfoot is one that Tyler mentioned. He leads the bottom lane, but Corbett and Barnes have suddenly found their way into the picture as well. But being on that bottom line, if the shuffle happens again that we saw with Matt Cox just a moment ago in the 32, If that happens again here towards the tail end of this race, they're going to have to utilize that third lane and try to get to the safer barrier and make that work. So I don't mind talking about that now, trying to organize the plan. Okay, if the bottom lane shuffles back, here's what we're going to do. We're going to try to get a run organized to the third lane. Let's plan it out now. So on the spot later with 5 laps to go, they're not scrambling. They know exactly what they're going to do. Love the game plan from the McCullough Motorsports contingent, which again includes Broadfoot tonight, includes Danny Barnes and Sean Corbett. We're all up front right now, but again, knowing what Matt Cox just went through, we know that's not guaranteed.
And you were just riding on board with Sean Corbett, almost 195, getting close to 200 miles an hour. Now we got a third lane working. This time it is going to be the 52 of Grady Graham. He goes up. Looks like he had a couple of guys that tried to follow. One of them was Beckett Brown, but he couldn't make it work. Now the third's going to start to bail, and all that momentum that made an initial surge to the middle of the pack is going to fade right back to the back of the line. And I'll tell you one thing I noticed here, Dawson, and if we can, I want to get a zoom in on the 5 car of Lopez. His left rear wheel is caved in at about a 45-degree angle. I don't know how that car is driving in the middle of the pack. He should be crab walking.
I just noticed that when you pointed it out on the left rear quarter panel of this 5 of Brandon Lopez. I have no idea how that car is still moving straight. Not only straight, but he's in the lead draft running 195 plus miles an hour. So for Lopez, I mean, obviously you keep driving it. If it continues to run full speed, you're not going to have a choice but to drive what you have at this point. Look at that wheel on the left rear corner of that car. That wheel is pointed inwards. Trouble on the backstretch. It's Matt Cox. Multiple cars around Lopez and others. Haas was involved. Lopez, that one's going to hurt. He hits the inside wall as multiple cars crash with 10 laps to go.
And whatever damage he already had is now going to definitely have to go in to get fixed, as this is going to be our 3rd caution here of the first heat of the night. And it looked like this one may have started somewhere around the 32. See a couple of guys that are still going to be limping away from this one. And man, we talked about it being such a good run so far tonight for Matt Cox. And obviously, he'll have to go in now and get some damage repaired. You're taking a look at the 8 of Haas. And we saw Kevin also involved in an earlier incident. We'll have to see if he played a part in this one. And this is also going to now set us up for a restart. Closer to 5 laps to go, so it's starting to become desperation time. And we just talked about with the MMS strategy, waiting long, and this could be what happens. You get a late caution, and it throws a wrench in the plan. Oh, man, big hit right there for the 32 of Cox. As we jumped into the replay, there was pretty much once it already happened. And we'll back it up one more time for you here to see a little bit further. So it looks like maybe a little bit of a stack up right in the middle line. Cox sees it, and as that car starts to drift up, contact with the 66 sends him into the outside wall, and then everybody trying to dodge him is what collects about 3 or 4 more.
Yeah, good job by Booth, Matheson. You see Richard Elliott spins as part of this too. He's actually, I think, going to get hit by one of the cars towards the tail end of the field. There you see Booth, or there you see the Lopez machine. We had just got done talking about him. Now he noses in with the left front. So unfortunately, the left front and the left rear are going to have some severe damage. In fact, a meatball flag aboard the Red Bull Chevrolet. So for Lopez, that's a tough break. The other car with a meatball is Ty Stone, the 25, that we saw hit Richard Elliott towards the end of that crash. So a couple cars have meatball flags, a couple cars have severe damage, a couple very lucky though. Kevin Haas, I think, is the luckiest of all. He came right across the back of the field on the racetrack and somehow managed to not get hit. Matt Cox gets away with no meatball flags as well. So good reports there. Some unfortunate reports though on the Lopez and Stone machines. For Cox, you see the stack up. He's trying to get into that third lane, which, by the way, it just started to roll with Matthew Zwack. And as he does, the move is just a little bit late, and he hooks himself into the outside wall and causes that incident that will send us into a late race restart.
And it was hard to tell if it was intentional or if he was maybe just drifting up as a result of the checkup. But yeah, either way, a tough break there. And I'll tell you what, for Ty Stone, man, obviously wrong place, wrong time. He had just been starting to really make his way through the field. He started back just inside the top 20, was up inside the top 15, and now, of course, is going to find himself having to restart towards the back of the field if he's able to get all this damage repaired on the pits. Well, one thing that hasn't changed through these cautions, the guys that have been dominant 1 and 2, that is Cody Nagels and Kyler Wynn as they continue to lead the field. And we've got a couple of really stout cars that have been having a great night so far, but Matthew Zwack, Brandon Broadfoot, we've seen them up towards the front as well, Mark Person. And then Grady Graham, Dawson, we talked about him having some issues early, but one thing he's done that most guys towards the back haven't, he has been willing to stay aggressive, and it has paid off. Now up to 6th, that puts him up 2 spots from where he started this race at, in just 1 position outside of a dual transfer spot.
Yeah, aggression tends to pay off, and it's paid off for some guys this week. My mind takes me back to last night. Ethan Eckert was very aggressive with his moves and his blocking in his heat race. It got him a victory, and he'll race in the pole shootout because he was just willing to turn that dial up to 11 for the entire 30 laps. The guys that have been aggressive and been willing to make moves as soon as possible have typically been rewarded for that towards the end of their races. So for Grady Graham, we're seeing the same pattern play out again for car number 52. Beckett Brown was the car that we mentioned a moment ago, lost the third lane when they tried to move up there the first time. He's up to 8th all of a sudden. He gets through that crash, and all of a sudden he's in position. I look at guys like Danny Barnes that's now in position in the 10th spot. And then guys just outside the top 10 that had some problems earlier, Poliakov in the 4, Kelly Walton in the 818, and a couple of others. Jacob Booth comes to mind as well, of guys that have had problems tonight, and they're right back in it now as well. It's all about how you respond to the adversity. We talked about Graham, we talked about Poliakov, we talked about the 818 of Walton as well. It's all about how you respond, and those drivers have responded well enough to give themselves a chance. With only 6 laps to go, there's not a lot of time to make those moves happen to get into a spot. If you're not in one, but certainly some guys have put themselves in a much better position.
And this isn't going to send us to overtime just yet, but if we get another caution anytime between when we take the green and the end of the race, then it will send us to that one and only green-white checkered. Well, we're not going to give too many spoilers away just yet, but we mentioned obviously Heat 10 and 11 coming up here tonight on PGR eSports, so make sure you don't go anywhere after the conclusion here of Heat Race number 9. But I'm looking at some of the big names coming up in those heats. Dawson, Dylan Jones, Matthew Baker going to be in the next heat race, and then you look further to Heat Race number 11 coming up tonight. I look at a couple of guys that we haven't seen as much recently, but certainly names that come to mind. Heath Job. You go back to Noah Jackson. I mean, these are guys that maybe not as much as they used to be around the money racing scene, but certainly know how to get it done when it comes to these big super speedways. And in the heat we've seen so far tonight, it has been all about experience. That's the guys who have stayed at the front the longest. And being conservative, even if it's with guys you don't normally work with, seems to be the safest strategy on being able to finish in the top 5 for one of these heat races.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what we've seen all week to this point, but the experience has ultimately outweighed every other factor when it comes down to it. So many of the experienced super speedway racers have made their way into Saturday's races already, and as we stand right now, many of the top 10 have multiple super speedway starts, and even in the top 5, multiple super speedway wins amongst them, counting, of course, the win person, Nagel's cars, WAC as well. We know what Brandon Broadfoot can do in the 22. So experience ultimately has been so important this week. It'll be important again right here. 6 laps to go. Cody Nagel's, Kyler Wynn trying to close the deal.
Trying to close the deal, but still enough time for some of these guys that are right around those final transfer spots to try to make it in. We'll keep an eye right around the top 10. But up front, it's Nagels and Wynn who lead us back to green flag racing. 6 laps to go here from Daytona. And similar to what they have done on every restart, Nagels times it perfectly. That allows him to jump up and look at all the organization early on the outside. This is not what Brandon Broadfoot wants to see. He has got no help as they climb the banking into 1.
I think the one thing that Broadfoot can take solace in is he's got a teammate coming to him. Sean Corbett is one of those MMS entries tonight in this 9th heat race. He'll be the pusher on the bottom along with Josh Cruz, who stays loyal to that inside lane as well. Kelly Walton trying to come through also on the bottom. Really nice push from Corbett as the outside tries to get going. The inside's got a nice little run here. Broadfoot and Corbett connect very well on the entry to turn 3, and they'll roll forward. Another car joins that line. That's Poliakov, the all-yellow Menards Peak Ford Mustang, 5th in line now on the bottom side. The outside continues to prevail. Is out back. The 3rd lane starts to try to work. That was back around Cockrell. Matt Cox, there's another car in that lane as well. 5 out the flag stand, 5 laps to go, and the top 6 cars back to Lieber are clear on the outside. He'll be the first to turn left.
And for Lieber here, he's got to get connected quickly with Brandon Broadfoot. That line, not a lot of momentum, but they're going to get a little bit more help. The 00 jumps down. Caution.
Trouble towards the back of the field. It's out back of the field again, Austin.
And it's another multi-car wreck. Yes, towards the back half of the pack here. Couple sliding around. One of them is Cox. Ty Stone involved in this one again. Looks like Cooper Cockrell and a few others that are going to have damage and have to go into the pits and work on some repairs. And this may be a tow bill here for Cockrell, and it will be. That's a tough break for the 99, as this could potentially put an end to his efforts of trying to make his way into the next round in the journey to the PGR 500. 4th caution of the night, and this will likely now send us into our one and only attempt at an overtime. Before we talk about that, let's go back and get a replay here of exactly what happened. It's as they're going into turn 1, this outside You see starts to bottle up right after the 025 makes the move, but it's actually further back. They get 3 wide, Dawson. The 15 gets turned. It collects the 66, and then that's where guys like Cockrell, the 8 of Haas, you saw Stone, they just pile in. They've got nowhere to go.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for these guys towards the back of the field, and it kind of feels like what we've seen throughout the night to this point, really throughout the week, and some of these incidents that happened towards the tail end of the field. You see Cockrell come off the banking there. I just mentioned him. He had actually just stepped out of that third lane with Matt Cox, and unfortunately, right after we start talking about him is when this incident's going to start in the center of the racetrack as he starts to drift down there 3 wide, all going for the same real estate. And as the third lane gets there, there's a little bit of contact. It sends one car awry, and it's on from there. So often in super speedway racing that we happen to see this. More cars get involved. Sarton may have gotten a piece of it. There's Cockrell getting what I believe to be the fatal hit there from the 8 of Kevin Haas. There's Harry involved. Matt Cox spins to a stop as well. There was one more car towards the front end of that. I think it might have been Alan Martin, the 15, that also got a piece of this as well. Tough break for some guys that already had tough breaks in this race, and that's been a pattern this week too. A lot of guys that have been in one incident, we have called out a lot of names that have been in more than one, and for a few guys towards the tail end of the field, that's the case right there.
Yeah, and it's like a never-ending cycle because cautions obviously breed cautions, and when you get sent to the back, it's not like it used to be. You can't get to the front in 2 laps with these cars anymore. It's a much more methodical process. You've got to have a lot of help behind you, and that's why we just continue to say, for the drivers that are hanging back, it just doesn't seem like it has been paying off, at least not through this point over the course of the week. Now, what's going to get interesting here is obviously some of these cars that are damaged going to be kind of forced to stay out on the racetrack at this point, as they're going to hope for a miracle or some sort of big wreck in these last 2 laps to potentially give them a shot at advancing through to at least the LCQs. We've still got a couple cars in the pits. Up front, no change. It's Nagels and Wynn. Those 2 have restarted on the front row for just about every single restart we've had so far here tonight in heat race number 9. Grady Graham, Beckett Brown going to round out the rest of the top 5. And then it's going to be Mark Person, Jarrett Lieber, Brandon Broadfoot, Danny Barnes, and Sean Corbett. The rest of the top 10, which would include the guys that would advance straight through to the LCQs. But Dawson, obviously, 2-lap shootout. Anything could happen. I think if you're any of these guys inside the top 5, with how I've seen Nagels and Wynn work together, it's going to be a tough pass. I'd almost say I try to go where those 2 go.
It wouldn't be a bad bet to go with the 6 and the 82, 2 of the most accomplished super speedway racers in the event this week. It certainly would be advantageous to any driver that would like to go with them. I would say the exception would probably be Zwack. Matthew Zwack is accomplished on super speedways also. I would see him maybe going opposite of those guys, trying to capture himself a win and get into the pole shootout tomorrow. But other than that, I think everybody will be flocking to go with the 6 and the 82, decide to go at least inside of the transfer positions. Quick storyline update before we go back green. 1 car is no longer eligible for this heat race by virtue of a second cause of caution. This is the first time we've had to note this rule this week. 2 cause of caution penalties in the same race is a disqualification. Unfortunately, it's the Beast Mode performance entry of Matt Cox that incurs the first second cause of caution this week. His night is over.
Wow. Big implications there for the 32, and I think that's interesting, Dawson, because when I went back and looked at it, it was kind of an awkward situation with a run coming out back. Cox kind of in a half-and-half decision, but that's going to be an interesting precedent that obviously the rest of these guys are now aware of going forward, seeing that it did happen to what was one of the favorites early on in this heat, but as you just mentioned, will not have a chance to continue on. Alan Martin does pull his number 15 car out of the pits. Still a little bit of damage, but he is going to try to limp it home and get the best finish he possibly can. Back in 25th right now, but as we line up for what will be our final restart here in heat race number 9, we want to remind you of the overtime rules real quick. PGR does it a little bit different. Again, only 1 green-white checkered attempt, and we will not see this race end under yellow. So these guys are going to race both laps out, and if there is a wreck, you just have to try to get through it. Now, with that said, there will still be fault deemed to drivers that cause incidents here within these last 2 laps. So you don't want to go out and cause a caution, because you do that and then you finish in a transfer spot. Well, guess what? You're not going to move on to the next round. So the idea here is to hopefully keep it clean, but if there is an incident, again, these guys will continue to race through it. Another interesting development here, Dawson, the 52 of Graham. A little bit of damage on the front nose. I'm not sure what it's been this week, but even with some of these cars we've seen damaged, I think back to Justin Johnson at the end of last night's heat race, he had a ton of damage to the front nose, and he was still able to stick up here with the lead pack and do a lot of pushing. So clearly damage has not been as bad as it used to be in the past with these cars.
It's such a difference from earlier packages. I mean, last year in the PGR 500, we saw cars that had damage fall off the track basically instantly with damage of that severity that we see on the Graham machine back and forth. I mean, the splitter is completely bent on the front end of that 52 machine. The nose is punched in. I mean, you can tell visibly that that car has been punched in right in the center of the nose, and he has just shown no limitations with it. Almost no consequence for having the damage on that race car, which has allowed him to stay out on the racetrack and put himself now in an advantageous position to advance at least into an LCQ, if not a duel, or potentially contend for the win in this race. It's such an interesting storyline, and one that I think drivers are taking a note of for later in the week.
Absolutely. All right, two-lap shootout to decide it. Who do you have? Cody Nagels, Kyler Wynn going to line up as the field will now roll back into the Simrap Market restart zone for one final attempt here at Daytona. Green flag back in the air. 5 miles to decide the Heat Race 9 winner, and it's a good jump once again for Cody Nagels. He's quick to jump to the high side, and he will cover a big run up top. Kyler Wynn now gets to the back bumper, but how about the bottom? They're going to get 3 cars tanded up quickly. Matthew Zwack has help from the 0-0 of Beckett Brown. Jarrett Liebert there as well, and now it's back to about a 4x4 battle with the high side and the top.
Yeah, about 12 cars have broken away from the field here at the front, and they will work down the back straightaway and off into turn 3. That's going to make it very interesting for who gets the final transfer spots. Just not as much energy to make any moves. 13 of them make it. Will roll into turn 3. The run coming from out back, though, is from Walton. Let's see if they take it to the third lane. They will not. They will ride in line for now. Well, a couple cars do. Third lane working 8 rows back. Nagels and Zwack will battle for the lead. This time by, they'll see the white flag, sponsored by Bender's Bar and Grills. The third line gets working out back.
An old man 2x2 here, but going into turn 1, the man still in charge is Cody Nagels. Kyler Wynn doing all the pushing. 3 guys that you may very well likely see up front in the feature on Sunday. Trouble out back. We had a big wreck towards the back of the field, but it will not draw the caution up front. They'll continue to battle it out onto the super stretch. Nagels leads. He's thinking about going to the bottom. He'll stay up top.
And here comes Zwack on the bottom side of the racetrack into turn number 3. He'll get the push from Beckett Brown, who's using every possible ounce of engine temperature he can to try to bring the JDR Camry alongside. I just don't think it will be enough. The field rolls off turn 4, 2x2. There's the first move out back around the transfers. 3 wide, 1 car gets split. It's Graham. The crash of the trial with Brown. Person, Barth, and others involved. Cody Nagels wins Heat Race number 9 as Calamity strikes again for the transfer spots.
And if you could draw up a perfect start to the week, well, Cody Nagels did just that. Heat Race 9 winner. He will now lock himself into the duels and the pole shootout, which will take place on Friday night. Also wins himself $60. So for Cody Nagels, he will be off to a good start of the week. Also, some kind of side notes here for the 6 car. Was a little bit worried going into the heats and wasn't sure if he'd have a provisional to kind of drop back on, but he's not going to have to worry about that now. Dawson, him and Kyler played it out perfectly, and while the 6 gets the victory, the 82 gets pretty much the same exact reward.
Pretty much, Cody Nagels will profit $60 off this race, so you got to imagine you'll pocket that, and you're already up double what you paid to get into this event. So for Cody Nagels, a little payday to start his week, but for he and Kyler Wynn, it's pretty much the same outcome. Like you said, they'll both race tomorrow night in the pole shootout, and certainly after a performance like this, I got to imagine they'll both be favorites in that race. 2 of the most dominant heat race performances that we have seen to this point in the week, in a well-deserved smoke show. The newly rebranded Red Line number 6.
Yes, he burns it down and celebrates here in front of the virtual grandstands. Curious about what happened there in that incident towards the end, and it's going to be a tough break if it took Joey Beck out of it, because he went from basically lead pusher to likely finishing outside of a transfer position, and obviously results will come in unofficially when we do look at those in just a moment. But, you know, Dawson, it's still a similar setup, not quite as big of a wreck here, but once again, I mean, you're about 100 feet from the start-finish line, but that one extra attempt to try to make a move ends up costing you a chance at making it to the next round.
Yeah, absolutely. So Cody Nagels gets the win as the unfortunate incident breaks out behind the leaders. So we will start to take a look at the race results for this 9th heat race before we get back to a replay of what happened back behind the leaders. I do think Graham ended up out, by the way, Austin, in the 52. A tough break for him.
A tough break indeed, but the winner here tonight is the 6 of Cody Nagels. for NBG Motorsports, and I believe Cody is still working with NBG. Kyler Wynn will take home second here tonight. It's a good finish for him, so both him and Nagels will be advancing on to the pole shootout on Friday. Matthew Zwack takes home third. He'll advance through to the duels along with Jarrett Liebert and Danny Barnes. How about that name? Great finish at the end here for Danny Barnes, as those two will also advance straight through into the duels. The first man who will be going on to the LCQs for Saturday is Brandon Broadfoot. He finishes in 6th. Cody Rhodes 7th. Sean Corbett 8th. Matt Campbell in 9th, and the last driver here in Heat 9 that will be moving on to the next round is going to be Tobias Matheson. He finishes inside the top 10.
Fortunately, the first man out will be Josh Cruz in the 44. A spirited run towards the end comes up just short. Mark Person was in a dual transfer spot entering the tri-oval. He gets collected in that crash and will be eliminated as well in 12th. Stephen Harry goes 13th. A great comeback effort for him. Same for Jacob Booth. They're out in 13th and 14th. Ty Stone is the 15th place finisher. Brandon Lopez finishes 16th, got very close to recovering from his damage that we noted earlier. He finishes in the 16th spot. Beckett Brown in 17th. There's the toughest break of the night so far. Grady Graham in 18th. Richard Elliott is 19th, and Alan Martin cannot recover from his damage. He finishes in 20th.
Kelly Walton's going to take home 21st here tonight. Sliding on back to the 22nd spot, it was Kevin Haas after he got caught up in a few different incidents throughout this race. Randall Peasley will take home the 23rd spot. It's going to be Anton Poliakov who finishes 24th. Clay Sarton 25th. Matt Cox, after getting disqualified late in the race, finishes 26th. Cooper Cockrell in 27th. And Zach Harry rounds out the field as he was not able to start this race. He finishes in 28th. Well, before we talk to your race winner, Dawson, I do want to get a quick chance here to go back and actually look at that finish here. Curious to see about some of the chaos that broke out. It looked like it was somewhere right around the 00 of Beckett Brown. And obviously we talked about how good he was doing there throughout the last lap, but we know anything goes coming down to the checkered. And I think for Brown here, Dawson, it looked like he was maybe considering just one more move, and as he jumps out, I think he gets clipped on the nose of the 77, and that is an end to his night, as we saw in the results that he is not going to transfer through.
And it's such a tough break, too, because I'm not sure he needed to make a move there. I think he was due to finish in a dual transfer spot. If he just stayed put in behind the Matthew Zwack car on the inside, I think they both were going to go to the duels. And he sees a gap open up and tries to take it. And unfortunately, it's going to cost him a spot. It costs Mark Person a spot. There's a couple more cars that are going to get costed a spot. Josh Cruz is another one that get collected that were inside the transfer spots that are out now as a result of that move. It's tough as a driver to judge this gap. You're going to go on board with it here. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. I think with Graham getting split, I'm almost positive that Beckett Brown would have made it into the duel, getting pushed by Jarrett Liebert. I think they all 5 were going to transfer up front, or at least he would have advanced into the LCQ. But this last move proves very, very costly. You'll see it here as he'll move up across the nose of Mark Person.
Yeah, it cost him big time here, right? There, it doesn't take much. And, you know, for Mark Person, obviously, nothing he did wrong right there. Says, hey, listen, at this point, I'm all gas. I can't lift. But for Beckett Brown, I agree, Dawson. He's going to be thinking about this one for a while. If he would have just stayed in line 100 more feet, he'd be celebrating right now knowing he was likely going to be advancing through to the duels. All right, well, we don't have much time before the next heat, but we do want to bring up your race winner, Cody Nagels, as he takes the first heat of the night. And I want to make sure that we get a chance to have him interviewed by his good friend and my co-host tonight, Dawson Wise.
Cody, it's the boys in the broadcast booth. You get a copy?
Yes, sir. What's going on?
Well, look, you can hear the excitement in your voice. Obviously, a big win for you here in heat race number 9 to open your week. We had heard some talks about a potential provisional for you, but now no need for that in car number 6. You looked very comfortable up front. First off, take us through your race here in heat number 9, as it looked pretty well uncontested for you up front in this opening race of the night.
Yeah, I owe it all to Kyler. Never thought I'd say that. Obviously, as you guys know, we have a lot of history, but we put it aside knowing that we're probably going to throw enough haymakers at each other come Sunday if we both make it. I think it was mutually beneficial for us to put all that aside and work together in this race. We took care of business. We both go to the pole shootout, have a shot to help our respective teams. It's going to be a very, very fun race. It just seemed like the mid's been strong all week, all heats. So we had the game plan that we were going to try to do that. So if there was a gap from me back to him, I would try to give him a little bit of air. He got hot on the last restart, but the pusher on the bottom was also hot. So I felt like we had a pretty good shot there. Then he had enough temps to tandem me out to where we go 1-2 to the line. So it was a very good finish, and I definitely owe this one to Kyler.
Well, look, you ran well in last year's PGR 500. You were inside the top 5 on the final lap and had a look at the win. It feels like over the past few weeks you've kind of returned to form. So now, advancing to the pole shootout and the duels, you'll start up front in both. What is the confidence level for you heading into the back half of the week for the PGR 500?
It's pretty good. And really, again, I owe that to the guys that I'm going to be running with in the 500 because I don't really think you can do it on your own. You got to have help and guys that are willing to communicate. Obviously, in this race, it showed with me and Kyler. We don't run together on a night-to-night basis, but when you have a guy with high skill level pushing you, whether it's your teammate or de facto teammates for that race, it really does help your chances as long as you don't make any pit road mistakes or anything like that. Having guys that can execute at a high level and do it consistently really is the difference between finishing potentially mid-pack in the race or being inside the top 10 with a chance to win $3,000.
Well, Cody, we know that it's a big week for you, so we'll start to let you get prepped. But before we let you go, is there anybody you'd like to thank or shout out here after your Heat 9 win?
Yeah, absolutely. Got to thank you guys, everyone at PGR, everyone that's been broadcasting all week. I know you guys have probably put in many, many hours and you guys are exhausted. So thank you for what you do. Mike, Baker, everyone at NBG Motorsports, but especially you two for what you do for PGR. I want to thank my sponsor on the hood this week, Redline Racing Network. I want to give a big shout out to my sponsor, Matt Metler, Team Watson Racing Setup, NBG Motorsports Nightmare, and a big shout out to my parents for tuning in. And my buddies at the bowling alley that I was supposed to bowl with tonight that they had it turned on because I couldn't bowl with them tonight. Had an obligation. So they're up there watching, and I already got text messages from them. So thank you guys for supporting me. And this is going to be a fun weekend. And hopefully, we've been sitting talking a lot about it, Dawson. Hopefully this will be the outcome come Sunday. Knock on wood.
What a great start for you this week as you win your heat race and you're on now to the duels and the pole shootout. Cody, congrats on the win. Go enjoy it. Go celebrate. We'll see you tomorrow night for the pole shootout race.
Yep, thank you.
And an exciting win for the driver, the number 6, Cody Nagels, as he takes on the win here in heat race number 9. Well, in about 5 to 10 minutes, we will have heat race 10 coming up. Looking forward to more action here tonight in the prelims to the PGR 500. Dawson, before we do officially take a quick break, we got to talk briefly about what we saw. A lot more pushing and shoving early, but I think Cody hit the nail on the head. The key to making it to and winning these bigger events is you have got to have help with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen it time and time again in these big-time super speedway money races, whether that's Thursday night PGR Intimidator Super Speedway Series action, or more importantly in these Crown Jewel events. We've seen it over and over and over again. The guys that make it to the front and have a chance to win typically have a few friendly faces with them that help them get to that point, whether from pit stop strategy or from moves on the racetrack. It's so important to have somebody that's on the same page. It is so much harder to do it by yourself. And for Cody Nagels, he had a friendly face there in that heat race. He'll have friendly faces moving forward as well. Such a huge key to winning these big-time events.
Absolutely. Heat race number 10 coming up here in just a few minutes. So with that, I want to give one more big thank you to Butta1 on Twitch for sponsoring Heat Race 9 tonight at Daytona, and we thank you all for joining us. We've got a lot more action coming up, and on behalf of my partner Dawson Wise, our pit reporter Tyler Vickery, I'm Austin Green. We will be right back from Daytona. Stick with us. Welcome back to Daytona International Speedway. Heat race number 10 is upon us. We're getting ready to go down trackside here in just a couple of minutes. And if you're just tuning in, we appreciate you joining us here on the week of the PGR 500. The Great American Sim Race is getting closer and closer as we slowly now begin the downhill slope of what is left for the prelim races. And you are, of course, watching all the action live right here on PGR eSports. We do want to give a big thanks to, of course, all of our sponsors, but mostly the sponsor spotlight tonight that we want to give a big shout out to here for heat race number 10, I apologize, is brought to you by Coasting Thunder, and that is our very own Matthew Baker in association with that, showing you America one ride at a time, from the biggest amusement parks to the smallest roadside attractions. Coasting Thunder crisscrosses the country, capturing the best travel destinations the U.S. has to offer. A powerhouse team of filmmakers turning experiences into stories, and if you want your location showcased the right way, Coasting Thunder is who you call. Well, speaking of roller coasters, Dawson, I think it's felt like that for a lot of drivers this week. We've seen a lot of emotions, but even in that last heat, we talked about three big names that were in potential dual spots coming into the tri-oval, but by the time we got to the start-finish line, they were no longer in a position to even transfer into the LCQs.
Well, ironically, we're in the state of Florida talking about the roller coaster week that we've had here in Daytona to this point. And going back to that heat race, ending in heat race number 9, I feel like we've just seen more of the same that we've seen all week to this point. There has been carnage during the races, no doubt. You know, as we get into this one as well, I'm sure we'll see more throughout the race. But in the last couple laps, every heat has used an overtime attempt, and in that overtime attempt, there has been some shuffle inside the transfer positions due to a crash. It happens every single time. Heat 10 will try to break that mold as we get ready to go green for 30 more laps of action here in just a moment. But to me, it just shows the desperation these guys are willing to have to make moves to make it in, and sometimes the desperation the guys are willing to have to maybe make it into a top 5 or a top 2 spot that can oftentimes cost you a spot overall in the top 10. I mean, 3 more depart out of Heat 9 that were in transfer spots off Turn 4. It's happened time and time again. And again, the drivers in this heat, it's got to be on their minds as well.
And I got to think the new edition of the pole shootout this year obviously has something to do with that extra level of aggression for these guys that are trying to advance through to the top 2. And speaking of the pole shootout, that race is going to take place on Friday night at 10 o'clock Eastern. And then we've got the LCQs and duels that'll take place on Saturday early afternoon and then into the evening. And then, of course, the event that we are all waiting for, the PGR 500, will kick off at noon Eastern on Super Bowl Sunday. Well, we've still got just over a minute here left in qualifying. Drivers are getting ready to get going here in heat race number 10. Dawson, obviously a lot of big names in the last one, but I think one of the favorites coming into this one is, of course, going to be Matthew Baker. The biggest difference, though, I don't see a lot of guys that are used to working together in this heat. It makes me wonder how that's going to mess with the pace of this race early.
Yeah, I think in heat race number 9, we saw a lot of times that guys came together that did work together. Obviously, Danny Barnes, Sean Corbett, and others that have worked together before in the past. You talked about the connection that Kyler Wynn and Cody Nagels had that Cody just told us about after his heat race win in heat race number 9. So I think you saw a lot more cohesion in terms of guys that have worked together or seen each other on the racetrack a lot, whereas in this 10th heat, there's not a lot of that on the racetrack to go around. There are a few guys that know each other, but nobody that really knows each other quite that well as, say, a Cody and a Kyler that have raced, side by side, nose to tail for going on 3 to 3.5 years at this point. So that's going to be an interesting storyline to me as we get ready to go under the green flag. No real teammates in this field is going to prove to be very interesting. That's been a storyline of the week as well. A lot of guys now, the teams are kind of spread out, and that has forced guys to have to make moves on their own and get out of their comfort zones.
It certainly has, and we've got just 3 heat races left here on the week. to decide the final drivers that will move on to the next round in the road to the PGR 500. Well, qualifying has wrapped up. Getting ready to get down trackside here and get things going with some of the pre-race ceremonies. Most notably, though, here, if you are just tuning in, a lot of the Coke names that entered in earlier this week have not been able to advance on through. I don't believe we have any Coke drivers here in heat race number 10, so that is something that will be interesting to keep notes on. All right, taking a look at your starting grid here tonight for heat race number 10. The man that will start on the pole is Daniel Nanny. He puts down a pretty stellar lap to get himself that front row starting position. NBG Zone, Matthew Baker, partial sponsor, of course, of the heat race here tonight. He will roll off on the outside pole. He's going to have Dylan Jones, another one of the veteran money racers. He will roll off back in the third spot. It's going to be Asher Little in fourth. Justin Melikar back in fifth. It's been a chaotic couple of weeks for him through the recruitment races. We'll see what he can do here tonight. Matthew Dula will start back on the outside of row number 3. Moving on back to row number 4, it's going to be one of the Jack Shack drivers. Kenny Reel on the inside in 7th. He'll have Randy Sample, one of the Grindstone Developments drivers, to his outside in 8th. Blake Kinkinnon will roll off from 9th, and it's going to be Holden Wheeler in the 09, rounding out the top 10.
Row 6, we'll see Mike Ardrey in car number 22 start alongside Gavin Grubbs in the 12 machine in the 12th position. Going back to row number 7, it's Cade McClenny making his PGR return this weekend. He will go from 13th in that familiar 05, and alongside him it'll be Zachary Harry in car 07. Row 8, Ryan Chapman in the 10 machine will go alongside Matt Davies in the number 26 Toyota. Row 9, Chad Dulabon in the 98 will go alongside Tommy Rogers in car number 34. He'll go from 18th. And rounding out the top 20 back on row number 10 in the 19th spot, it's going to be Jim Treat in the 25. In the 20th spot to be James Dubose in car number 55.
And 21st is going to be David Guisti with Jake Nipperis to his outside in 22nd. Austin Mitchell rolls off from 23rd, and he'll have Carson Freeman to his outside in 24th. Back in the 25th spot here tonight, it's going to be Brandon Yates in a Toyota. He'll have a Chevy. That's Michael Martino to his outside in 26. And the final two here in row number 14 for Heat Race 10 is going to be Austin Holsey and Taylor Nadeau. So Dawson, another full field here for Heat Race number 10. And I know we haven't mentioned track conditions a ton here tonight, but obviously it's been the same through all the heats. We've seen how sporty this TWSR setup has been throughout these races, and it really makes me think that aggression early has been the key to success for a lot of these guys.
Absolutely it has. We've seen the guys that have been willing to make moves out of their comfort zones early pay off most at the end of the race. We saw in heat race number 9 with guys like Cody Nagels and Kyler Wynn being willing to turn left, turn right, move up the racetrack, do things quickly in the race. It paid off for him in the form of a 1-2 finish. I look at Matthew Zwack as another guy that made moves early in that race, that it paid off for him. He stayed up front, and he was able to advance on to the duels on Saturday. Ethan Eckert, again, I'll mention his name once more because last night in Heat 6, I think he had what we've seen to be one of the most dominant single car performances of the week to this point. Again, by being aggressive, making big time moves, or making big time blocks. It has paid off for the guys that have finished up front to be aggressive early, and no shortage of aggression here at the front of the field. Of course, Nanny will start on the pole, but I look for Matthew Baker to carry the tone of aggression here early in that 5 car.
Yeah, he's also carrying that beautiful coasting Thunder paint scheme on board here tonight. By the way, that's another one of the drivers we have in the field that makes a lot of very good custom schemes, so check out, I think it's Kid Bait Paints. Get more info on that here in the latter half of this race, but nonetheless, Baker going to be part of the front row that will lead us to green. The man on the pole, though, is Daniel Nanny. The 30 car ready to go as the iRacing.com pace car is going to pull off. The field now is going to roll up into the Simrap Market restart zone. Let's get going here at Heat Race 10. Green flag is in the air at Daytona.
On to the Daytona Super Stretch for the first time in heat race number 10, and it's all Civil so far back to the Holden Wheeler machine. That is the first car to get knocked out of line. Back there, he was having some connection issues over in turns 1 and 2, and Kenny Reel does not want to wait for those issues to solve. He'll send the Traveler Whiskey Chevrolet to the back of the field. Up front as they work rocket off turn number 4. The inside prevails for the moment, but not for long. Nanny will face his first challenge of the race, this time from Dylan Jones, carrying the orange and white aboard that 11. Unfamiliar territory for Jones, as he's got some sponsors aboard that race car for the first time in a while.
Well, Mellicar was the big winner throughout that first lap. He picked up 3 spots in just 2.5 miles. Meanwhile, Matthew Baker, he's been paired up with 2 of the veterans here of Super Speedway Racing, Asher Little and Matthew Dula, but they have not been able to get this outside with much success just yet. Those guys will try to regroup. It's 2 Chevys and a Ford, but at the front of the field, it is still all the 11 of Dylan Jones. The front 2 have already picked up 2 or more spots from where we started this race at, but the bottom now continuing to fade. The 30 of Nanny qualified on pole. Now he's going to start to charge back. He's got to push this time from the 15. Bottom trying to draw back even as they work into the tri-oval.
Jones continues to lead as the field will work lap 3. Nanny trying to get that inside lane going after Dylan Jones hung the right turn a couple of laps to go on the opening lap of this 10th heat race. Nanny's got the help from the Kinkennon machine on the bottom side of the racetrack. They work up alongside Matthew Baker now, up the banking of turns 1 and 2. What a good soldier that Justin Mellicar has been so far in the 84 for the Midnight Racing League. Up top side as he continues to work Dylan Jones well clear of the Daniel Nanny machine that started on pole. Now to be the 4 cars clear on the outside back to the Sundrop Chevy of Asher Little. Make it 5 back to Matt Dula, making his PGR return this week. Familiar Dula light colors aboard his car, and he'll carry that blue Ford Mustang to the inside for the first time. He's the first one amongst the top 5 to make a move. He'll go to the nose of Nanny, and it's Dula that now leads the inside. Jones looking in his mirror here, coming to lap 4.
And for Dula, he has picked up a spot from where he started this race at. Still 2x2, very similar to what we saw in the early portions of heat race number 9. Nobody towards the back comfortable with trying to make a move out of line just yet. Tommy Rogers back towards Jake Nipperis, Carson Freeman. These are guys that are trying to get lined up, but nobody has had the courage yet to get outside and try to make that 3rd lane working. Still early though, only 4 laps in the books here at Daytona. Dylan Jones still at the front of the field. Justin Mellicar has been pushing for a while. You got to keep an eye on the temps in that race car. We've seen a couple of blown motors here so far throughout this week, but as Jones jumps down, the 84 is finally going to get a chance to cool off. That is now going to move the NBG Motorsports captain, Matthew Baker, up to the lead pusher. Not for long though, as Jones goes back to the high side.
Dylan Jones doing an expert job right now of managing the 2 lanes. We saw Cody Nagels and Kyler Wynn do this. We've seen Ethan Eckert do this. We saw Dylan Alt do this last night in his heat race. A lot of the heat winners so far this week have been able to manage lanes. Right here, Justin Mellicar going to start to have to use unorthodox techniques to try to get that engine cool. He did not have much time in clean air there. As we go on board with Matthew Baker for NBG Motorsports, locked in right there in 3rd on the outside lane right in front of Asher Little. He'll give a shot here to Mellicar down to turn 3. That's going to propel that outside lane forward. Matt Dula has been resorted back to the 4th position, now make it the 5th position on entry to turn 3. Mellicar still trying to get the engine cool, trying to get the temps down as the inside is starting to work on their own temperatures as well.
An interesting note here, Dawson. I was looking a few spots back. Obviously on board here with Matthew Baker in the number 5 machine as he continues to take it pretty easy behind Justin Mellicar. I don't think he wants to get too aggressive at the moment. You see Asher Little behind him, but 1 spot further back is where we find the 24 of Randy Sample. He's got the Team Cocky Sim Performance colors on board here tonight. Interesting note for Sample, if he's able to advance through tonight, he could have a shot at joining one of his teammates, and that would be Bryce Rayner, who we saw advance through in one of the heats earlier on this week. Kenny Reel for the Jack Shack on the high side as well. Ooh, further back, looked like the 9 car thought about going 3 wide. That was David Quisty, but he's going to think better of it. Dylan Jones still leads up front. The 17 of Dula on the inside. 2x2 off a turn 4 at Daytona.
And the inside finally got back to Dylan Jones as Dula and Nanny finally got that line connected and got all the way back forward. So a much better position for them now as they run on the front straightaway. Dula will come to the left rear quarter panel of Dylan Jones and fight to lead for the first time in the PGR 500. Matt Dula trying to go to the point of the push from Nanny as Mellicar still trying to get cooled off in the 84 top side of the racetrack. He'll still peek out of line. You see him peeking to the right side of Dylan Jones's car on entry. That is to cool down the water and oil temperatures of that race car so that he can continue to push and keep their line moving forward. He's done an effective job of it so far, but this is the biggest challenge that inside has presented to this point in the race. Dula back to the inside. Mellicar down. The 84's in the outside wall. He saves it for the moment. We'll have to check the damage. That's a heck of a save for Mellicar, but he's gone backwards.
And Dawson, I didn't mean to bring you the big reaction, but for the 84 right there, you can almost see it coming. He got exactly what we talk about so much in the money racing scene on these super speedways. Tunnel vision is trouble out back. Two cars going to spin through the tri-oval. Looks like they're both going to save it as they go off track. It was the 82 of Austin Holsey and Tommy Rogers in the 34 as they are now slow and have lost touch with the pack. But getting back to the story here on Justin Melichar, as we're going to stay green. Dawson, I don't know how. It looks like he is still with the lead pack, and I really don't see a ton of damage to the right front. Unbelievable considering how hard he hit the outside wall. But as I mentioned, tunnel vision, it's so easy to do here. You get so wrapped up in the guy that you're pushing, you forget to check what's behind you when you start moving lanes.
Yeah, it's a tough break for Justin Melichar. We talked about how effective he was at cooling the engine, and I think as they enter turn 3, he's still trying to position himself to not turn Dylan Jones when he's trying to peek out of line. So he's following the back end of Jones's car as they work into turn 3. Unfortunately, Jones goes to throw a bit of a late move there into turn 3. Not necessarily a late block as we've seen so often, but it was a little bit later than some of the moves we've seen in earlier heat races, and Melichar just follows him down there trying to follow the tail end of that 11 machine. So a tough break for Melichar, but now he's one of the ones trying to rally the outside lane. 5 cars deep, up at the outside wall, rather, as the 9 is the leader of that group. Can't tell exactly which car that is. They work forward about the 15th position right now. Now only 4 cars as Melichar dives out of line. Speaking of the driver of the 84, we'll go downstairs quickly as they are 3 wide to our pit reporter Tyler Vickery. He's got an update on the 84 of the Midnight Group. It's Justin Melichar.
Yeah, Melichar, that first thought that he made an error and stuff and hit the wall. Feels like the car is good. He's going to be working with Dylan Jones, Baker, as well as Kenny Rill, trying to get back up there. Right now, they've been doing pretty well. Baker's also been a little worried about, based on this new, the new update recently, that the Chevys are more sensitive to pushes, so the wrong push could actually damage the front nose and rear bumper of those Chevy cars as well in the next gens.
Thanks for that report, Tyler. Boy, at the front of the pack, it is getting intense. Matt Davies just slammed the door on Justin Melichar, who was making his way back to the front. Kenny Rill liked what he saw onto the bottom, and he'll bring his number 11 Chevy back down to the inside. Meanwhile, the third lane has been trying to get working, but they have not found a ton of success just yet. That is Cade McClenny, though, leading the high side. Dawson, if you're looking for a guy that can deliver consistency and success in these big events, I got to think McClenny's right at the top of the list.
Almost contact. That's back around Randy Samples, the car that's in the middle of that lane. That was Brandon Yates, was struggling there just for a moment on entry to turn 1, but they all keep it going. That's going to stop the momentum of the outside that was led by McClenny and Sample just a moment ago. They've got a couple more cars up there with them as well. That's Nipris in the 6 that runs 3rd in that lane. There's one more car up in behind them as well. That's the Holden Wheeler car. We saw the connection issues earlier. And man, continuing to have problems in that middle lane is Brandon Yates. And that's going to force McClenny and company, I think, to bail out from this 3rd lane. There's just not enough space there for them to make that move work. They'll bail at least a couple of rows back of the 15, who continues to kind of wash up the racetrack on entry. Although, here we go again. They're going to try to the outside of Yates. And again, he washes up. This is getting very close on the banking of turns 1 and 2. Inches apart. Almost contact, but everybody gets by it.
Oh, man, yeah, the spotters have to be getting nervous about Yates right here. That car does not look very comfortable through the corners, as it looked like Cade McClenny going to go back down to the middle. He doesn't want to mess with it anymore, and this is really going to kill the momentum for the 24 of Sample. He's going to drag back multiple more in here as this 3rd lane just not going to get going. There it is, the 15 finally going to spin. Caution out for the first time of the night as he slides back up the track. Yates is going to collect 2 as we got another one that's spinning down towards the inside wall. And this is your first caution here of heat race number 10, presented by the NASRA 360 Racing Network. And for Yates, Dawson, you just talked about him a lap ago. It almost kind of looked like, to a degree, a ticking time bomb that finally expired here. We'll have to go back and get a view in just a moment, but for Yates, he has taken to the pits. He'll have to get some damage repaired, and a tough break for some of the drivers that were trying to get this 3rd lane working and now find themselves caught up in a wreck. I'll tell you what, though, Dawson, when it looked live, it almost didn't look like this was a Yates issue. Almost looked like another checkup.
It could very well have been another stack up. That's been a problem all week in these Gen 7 race cars. And yeah, I think you're right, as McClenny and one more car got stacked up right in front of the Yates machine. Giusti, Holden Wheeler, Carson Freeman all get a piece of it as well. The other 3 cars that get involved in this, the first caution of this heat race, man, the left rear wheel on Brandon Yates' car, it is immobilized. Watch in front with McClenny and that's the 22. That's the other car. That's Mike Ardrey. They got stacked up a little, and it's Giusti in the left rear of Yates. And down the track he comes. Actually, another car is going to get collected. That's the 55 of Dubose. So James Dubose, then Wheeler, then Giusti, then Freeman, and of course Brandon Yates are the 5 cars involved. A couple guys scrambled to the apron. Man, look at the 97 down there of Taylor Nadeau. Almost slides back up. Man, that was almost a second crash there down on the apron.
Yeah, we did see the 97 actually go for a spin just out of camera view and makes a little bit of contact with the inside wall. I don't think it was anything too major, but yes, for the 15 here of Yates, definitely going to have to go in and use that one and only fast repair, which, man, I'll tell you what, Dawson, if we didn't have those in the back pocket this week, I could not imagine we'd have but 5 cars left running at the end of some of these heat races with when we've seen these cautions break out. The biggest difference so far here tonight, at least in Heat 10, that may have been one of the longest green flag runs to start a race that we have had so far throughout the week. 12 laps of green flag racing, and it was all sorts of exciting up at the front, but now looks like it is Asher Little, Kenny Reel, and Matt Davies that find themselves in the top 3 here for our first restart of the night.
Yeah, going back to that fast repair point that you just made, I look at guys like Craig Jancic that advanced in after taking a fast repair in the overtime period. I look at Nick Seipel, who advanced in via the fast repair late in his heat race. And there's been multiple stories throughout the week of guys that were involved in crashes, took a fast repair, came back out, and got inside the top 10 at the end of things. Zach King, I believe, in the 51 a few nights ago, also utilized his fast repair and managed to get in via the top 10 transfer spots. So if you did not have that, those stories would not happen. They would not be possible. So for some drivers in the field tonight, shortly, they'll take a fast repair and be in contention for the transfer spots. At the end, you're on board now, an onboard look with Kenny Reel for the Jack Shack. Got to imagine he is talking to some of his team drivers and spotters that are in the session working with him, trying to get him in. Of course, a couple of the Jack Shack entries have already advanced. Talk about David Flanagan from the opening heat on night number 1. We talk about a couple of others coming up in the heat later on tonight. Landon Veliky is also advanced into the pole shootout as well as into the duels on Saturday. So a few of the Jack Shack entries have already advanced and a few still trying to get in real here in heat number 10.
And it's going to be probably right around 15 laps to go when we do get the green flag back in the air. I want to take a quick moment to acknowledge everybody in the chat. It has been so great to watch all the conversations going on so far throughout this week. We appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in and all that you do for making PGR eSports what it is. We did have a couple of super chats that I want to give a quick shout out to here tonight. First up, NorCal Fire 7385 with the 99-cent super chat earlier. We certainly appreciate it. And then just recently, Baker's mom, of course, rooting on Matthew Baker, her son, here tonight with the $10 super chat here just a minute ago. We appreciate that a ton, and we cannot wait to see who will advance through this one. We appreciate, again, everybody for tuning in here tonight. Well, it'll be 15 laps officially to go. Once we do get the green flag back in the air, Asher Little, Kenny Reel up front, Matt Davies, Dylan Jones second. And I'll tell you what, Dawson, Asher Little, we have seen what this kid has been able to do now for some time on the PGR side of things, but he has still not been in this exact position for one of these big races. I gotta think there's a little bit of nerves going on. He knows what to do up here, but this is a much bigger caliber event than maybe what he's been around for so far.
Well, it's a big caliber event for a lot of the drivers showing up this week, but even for some of the veterans of the money racing scene to be up front in this situation, absolutely, there are some nerves. And, you know, a lot of us can experience that as a driver. You and me both have been in heat races or even bigger races than that, of course, starting in 500-mile events. You started last year's PGR 500, so you know exactly kind of the feeling that Asher Little and a couple of these guys have up at the front right now. And yeah, there's absolutely nerves. Again, you could be seasoned and be on the service for a long time, but this is such a unique set of stakes, a unique situation to be in, knowing how big this event is, that the nerves absolutely can creep in when you're in this spot for the first time this week. You can prepare for it all you want, but ultimately once you're in the car, it's a whole different animal. That's what Little is experiencing right now.
It certainly is. Well, you look back here to row number 2 and then row number 3. That's where the key pushes are going to come from for Justin Melikar. Again, an absolute huge break that he did not break some sort of suspension components on that race car after that last near incident. Kind of like a second free life here for the 84 machine. And for Matthew Baker, Matthew Dula, these are some of the guys that I think they've chosen not to get too aggressive yet, as we are just now getting ready to cross the halfway point. So pace car gonna make the left turn. It'll be our first restart attempt here in heat race number 10. Here comes the field back into the Simrat Market restart zone. Green flag is back in the air for Asher Little, and he gets a big jump this time. He'll lead him by about 3 car lengths as they cross the line. But this is where you've got to be careful, Dawson. We talk about good restarts, but you can get too big of a jump at Daytona that could cost you in the process. The 0-1 going to stay high. Here comes the big run for Kenny Real. It's going to briefly check up the outside, but that's where all the momentum's going to stay with at the moment. Further back to 32, still stuck on the bottom, and now the top's really going to roll. Asher Little's going to pull him clear all the way back to about the 30 of Nanny.
My initial thought was that Little's restart was too good by the run that Kenny Real was going to get when he got to the back of the Sundrop Chevrolet, but by virtue of this new aero package on this next-gen race car, the runs are a little bit smaller, and as such, Kenny Real was able to square up a really good push to the back of that green 0-1 and keep that line moving. Nobody really out of shape amongst the top 4, now top 5 back to Nanny. So Little continues to lead. Kenny Real showing some trust in him, so too is Dylan Jones, to be the man out front of this line, leading it around this racetrack with 14 laps to go. No moves yet from second back through fourth, make it back through fifth. First car out of line is Davies on the inside, and he's pushed to the front by the returning Justin Melikar. As the Midnight Captain jumps to the inside of the 84, he tries to make that line work. He's got Matt Dula with him, a pair of drivers that were up here earlier in the race, coming back to the front on lap 17.
And for Austin Mitchell, looked like he was trying to make a split through the middle there briefly down the super stretch. He thought better of it. And you mentioned that bottom lane, Dawson, starting to roll back even here off of turn number 4, but Asher Little still has the Sundrop Camaro out in front, leading at Daytona. And Kenny Real looks more than happy to be the lead pusher right now. Dylan Jones still there. And it's a tough spot here, Dawson, because if you're Asher Little, you feel like you're in a vulnerable position. He's riding right in the middle of the racetrack. Kenny Real could go high, could go low. He's just got to trust that that 11 will stick with him. Now, not like the old package where you had to defend your right rear at all costs, but it's going to be very interesting to see at what point does another lane get formed up. The bottom's still struggling here. The 32 has not been able to get back even with all the pushing that's going on out back. We'll see what happens here into turn 3 and 4, but they got to get it together soon. They're going to try to join the fray here down on the bottom as Melikar now rolls up to the back bumper of the 32 car.
Well, the struggles on the bottom is exactly why Asher Little is basically in no danger right now of losing the lead to Kenny Real or Dylan Jones. It's because they know they can ride in line. They're all clear. So later in the race, if they want to make a move, they can. There's no imminent challenge from Matt Davies and Justin Melikar on the inside. So these three behind Asher Little are more willing to ride. Is that mentality going to change? Because here comes the bottom. Davies, the Busch Light Camry. Melikar is the midnight purple Chevrolet behind him. And then it's Matt Dula. And a couple more cars are in line with them. Ken Kennan is in that line. Another car back behind them, as well as that Mobil 1 Toyota further back fifth on the inside. Matt Dula splits to the center. This is going to be tight quarters here into 3. Dula makes the middle work. Davies trying to work up. Dula's going to get turned. Harry's going to get turned. The big one strikes in heat 10. Many cars are going to get involved in this one. Dula is in it. He spins to a stop. They're crashing more out back towards the tail end of the field in the stack up as well.
Holden Wheeler, Zach Carey. Looks like the 12 car is also going to get involved. That's Gavin Grubbs. As our second caution of the night collects a lot more than the first one. The 17 Adula here is going to get that Dula light machine spun back in the right direction, and he will get back rolling. But Dawson, once again, you almost kind of saw that starting to play out as they were going into turn 3. You mentioned, obviously, the bold move there initially from Dula, but it was a tight squeeze. And as Baker starts to come down, Baker establishes that spot, and it looks like, I'm not sure if it's from kind of the bump. Well, actually, we'll wait till we go back and get a replay of this. It was almost synchronized spins here. Watch this. As we're going to be going into turn 3, there's going to be an incident here with Dula and the 07 at the same time of Zach Carey. And watch what happens here is they get spun, and it's just a little bit of contact on the left rear for Matt Dula, as I think he's either, well, I don't think he is trying to split the gap, Dawson. It almost looked like when he hit the back bumper of Baker, it just shot that car down just enough to where that contact occurred with the car on the inside. And then once he starts to spin, there's another spin behind him with the 07, and everybody else is going to try to avoid it.
Yeah, that's a tough spot for Dula to be in. He went to the middle, whether by choice or otherwise, on the first car down there. I believe it was Melikar that ended up splitting. And then as he gets into the center lane, Matthew Baker's coming down the racetrack just a little bit, and they kind of meet in the center. And with where Dula hits the back of the 5 car, it just jolts his car to the left. This is something we've seen in the next gen for a long time at this point. When you hit in a certain point, it can jolt both cars a certain direction. You're on board now with Carson Freeman. Watch him ahead. The track's going to get blocked. There's just nowhere for guys to go. Freeman pins it to the outside wall. He may have gotten some scrapes on the side of that 4 car, but I'll tell you what, that could have been a lot worse as he pinned it to the wall and rode past all of those crashing cars and gained a ton of positions. So a great look on board there with the Freeman machine. You're on board now with Dula. Watch where he hits Baker right here going into 3. He's going to hit him kind of on the left for a quarter, and you see him jolt to the left. That's going to shoot him across the nose of the inside lane and cause him to spin. And you mentioned synchronized. Harry actually got turned at the exact same moment as Dula did, and it blocked the entire track. There was nowhere to go.
Yeah, if one incident isn't enough to avoid, these guys had to try to dodge two. And then for Dula, you see that secondary incident right there that got him spun towards the inside wall, was able to stop just before making contact. So I don't think the 017 is obviously out of this race by any extent to the imagination. The big question would be whether or not he's got to use his fast repair and go back live. I believe that the 17 has done just that. Dula's got a clean nose on the front of his Ford Mustang. He'll catch the pack, but is going to have some work to do here inside of 10 laps to go when we get this restart. Up front, though, the 01 of Asher Little continuing to now look more and more comfortable at the front with a lot of the big names, establishing himself as one of those. Kenny Reel second, Matt Davies third, Dylan Jones fourth, and Matthew Baker still up here inside of the top 5. And of course, got to give an extra shout out here to Matthew Baker for all that he does for PGR. Of course, he is the co-owner of PGR eSports, and him and Michael Triscaro putting in a ton of work behind the scenes to get this event going and everything they have to do throughout this week to make sure that it runs as smooth as possible. So big shout out to Matthew Baker for all of his hard work. Well, Dawson, caution back out on the racetrack here. Obviously, I know we're getting lined up to go back green. Do want to take a quick moment to mention that all cautions throughout the week are powered by the NASRA Racing Network, and they have a big event coming up here on March 7th. That is when the NASRA 6 Hours of Le Mans will take place. 6 hours of strategy, teamwork, and endurance, all on the NASRA 360 Racing Network. Well, you know, Dawson, we've been shouting out a lot of these other promotions throughout different points of the week, and I think it's worth mentioning. We had the NASRA 500, we had the MRL 500. A lot of these guys took part in those big events, but what do you take from that, and how can you apply it to what we've seen so far in these heat races?
Well, it almost works like practice reps, if you will. And that's not to downplay the significance of those other races, but you know, a lot of guys have been looking forward to this race this week in the PGR 500, and it almost gives you prior experience in this format that other guys are coming in not having. And for example, I know Kenny Reel and Dylan Jones have both run in those events. I know Matthew Baker has tried to make his way into those events as well. Asher Little also leading the race. You talk about Cade McClenny. You talk about guys further back. Justin Melikar ran the MRL 500 last week. May have started the NASRA 500 as well. So a lot of these guys having 500 miles or 1,000 miles under their belts already, they know what to expect. You can come in with an existing set of notes mentally that prepare you for a heat race. You know exactly the situations you're going to find yourself in coming down to a transfer spot at the end, and sometimes you know what moves do and don't work at the end of one of these races. We saw over the past couple weeks the finishes of some of the races, and guys can come in and adjust and say, well, that didn't work, let me try something different, or hey, that move worked in this other race, let me try it out here, let me see if I can get anybody to bite and go to the third lane, or bite and split through the middle, and let's see if this works just as well. You have a set of mental notes, and it gives you a serious advantage over some guys. Maybe this is their first attempt at a 500-mile event this Speed Weeks.
Going to be an exciting restart here. Again, it'll be 8 laps to go. Asher Little, Kenny Reel will lead us back to green right here. And right around the final transfer spots, again, we talk about the format all week, but it's top 5 will advance straight through to the duels. 6th through 10th will make it to the LCQs. Everybody else will be heading home. And the last man's around that final 10th, 11th-ish transfer position. Well, I should say Cade McClenny is in the last transfer position in 10th, but you look at some of the other guys right around it, Randy Sample, Jim Treat, and then some of the guys that are currently in, Tommy Rogers, Ryan Chapman, but they are only in by a couple of spots. So you got to stay up on the wheel here. Got to stay aggressive because we are starting to run out of time to decide a winner here in Heat Race 10 at Daytona. Asher Little rolls back into the sim market restart zone. Green flag is back in the air at Daytona, and it's a good restart for the 01. He's going to get the better jump, and similar to what we saw in the last heat, the leader has enjoyed getting that jump on the inside and then moving to the high side. Now he'll have to await a push from Kenny Reel and Matthew Baker. The high side's got all the momentum. Now they're going to get connected. Who's going to have to run down the super stretch?
Well, it'll be the outside lane. That's because Dylan Jones looks in the mirror and sees only 2 cars on that inside lane behind him trying to push. Now, they are triple tandem, but they are just not going to be a match for 7 cars up on the outside lane of the racetrack. They're holding even down the back straightaway, and that's as big an achievement as ever as they roll down into turn 3. Now, they'll have the cavalry coming behind them. Holden Wheeler leads the charge up to the back bumper of those cars on the inside, back behind Kinkennon, the 3rd car in line. They'll work off turn 4. They'll be even almost with Matthew Baker. So Dylan Jones comes to the left side door of the Coasting Thunder Chevrolet for the 3rd spot. Now he'll be relegated to 4th with Justin Melikar. That's the battle on going down towards turn 1. Out back, Baker takes a look to the inside on the nose of Dylan Jones as Matt Dula flies up the outside. He's got help from behind. That is the 22 machine behind him. That's Mike Ardrey.
Yeah, and the desperation slowly starting to pick up. Even the aggression up front with Matthew Baker taking that big dive to the inside. Further back, there's been a couple of guys trying to peek out to get this 3rd lane working. One of them was Mike Ardrey. Couldn't get any help yet, but now another checkup's going to cause Dula to jump to the high side. The 22 is going to follow. Can the 17 get some momentum and go into the front? We'll have to wait and see. He's gotten to the high side, but he needs a little bit more help. Meanwhile, at the front, Matthew Baker cuts his way up to the front. Asher Little leads the bottom. 6 laps to go at Daytona.
Yeah, good move there from Jones and Baker. Have to assume those two are on the same page in this 10th heat race. Asher Little will unfortunately have to go back to the help of Daniel Nanny and be on the inside 3rd in line, but here comes a big push from them. The Sundrop Camaro going forward as we continue to watch the Matthew Dula run to the front. He goes further backwards. He was in a good spot a moment ago. He's gone all the way back to the tail end of this lead pack. He'll have Carson Freeman working with him. 2x2, 12 rows deep at the front. Little on the inside, Baker on the outside. Baker will have the advantage as the field rolls up the banking of turn 3. Matthew Baker, Dylan Jones are the helpers there. Asher Little, Daniel Nanny are the cars on the bottom, and the temperatures are starting to get hot. You see Jones and Nanny both back off of their respective lead cars. They're going to have to try to cool their motors, and they'll get the 5 out the flag stand this time. 5 laps to go in heat number 10.
And the pushes are starting to turn into shoves here, Dawson. These guys are really starting to pick up the aggression. With every single push, that risk becomes bigger that you accidentally turn the guy that you're trying to push. But man, this inside really starting to struggle now. The 15 car starting to fall back further and further. That's Blake Kinkennon, who's trying to continue his charge to the front. But as it stands right now, the 09, Holden Wheeler, he's made his way back inside the top 10. Up front, it's all about the outside line, though. Matthew Baker's going to pull Jones and multiple others clear as they dive into turn 3. But nobody's going to take it just yet. Now the 5 car is going to jump down to the bottom. And you mentioned engine temps, Dawson. We're coming to 4 laps to go, and if it stays 2x2, you got to set yourself up so that you can push when it matters most.
Well, they haven't really been able to cycle. That's what we've seen earlier in tonight's heat racing in heat 9 and in this 10th heat race that has worked to allow guys to stay up front is that they're able to cycle the pushers. They might be able to here in turn 1, but Matthew Baker is not moving. He's going to stay up top. And now you see the big gap on the bottom as Daniel Nanny has gotten very hot in the 30. That's going to allow that outside line to really roll onto the Daytona Super Stretch. They'll come even for 3rd. They'll come even for 4th. They will almost get another car up there. That's Chapman coming into the picture for the first time. He is 5th in line on the outside lane. First time we've called his name really tonight in the 10 machine. McClenny has also worked into a transfer spot right behind him, the Waffle House Mustang. Yellow and black new colors from McClenny after what we last saw him in here in PGR. He's worked into the top 10. How about 3 laps to go, 7.5 miles. Baker continues to lead, but when will Dylan Jones thinking about turn out of line?
We'll have to wait and see, and I mentioned earlier with Kinkennon, talked about him being 3rd on the inside. A little bit of damage to the front nose of his Camaro. We'll see how that affects the rest of the momentum for this inside. The top has been dominant since Baker and Jones have went to the lead. Kenny Real, Justin Melikar. Be interesting to see if those two form an alliance and try to jump to the outside tonight. But don't look now. Here comes the 3rd lane. Randy Sample with the Team Conti Sim Performance colors. He'll jump up top, and he's going to get a push from the 22 machine. As they rock it into turn 3, though, here, you got to be careful. We're starting to see more pushing in the corners here. The 6 jumps up. The 9 of McClenny thought about it. 3rd lane starting to really get formed up now off of turn 4.
I believe that is the Jim Treat machine that's taking his first turns here at the front of the field. He leads the 3rd lane now up alongside Justin Melikar. The 3rd lane's on the scene, and I'm not sure this middle lane quite expected that run to happen that fast. They've got to regroup into turn 1. Treat and McClenny, some contact there between those 2 cars as they work 3 wide, 6 rows deep in the field. Middle lane continues to be where all the momentum is. Treats alongside McClenny. That is just inside the transfer positions right now as they run, but McClenny will pull clear. The outside's yet to find much momentum. When they get back, they'll see the white flag.
And it will be 1 lap to go here, and just less than now about half a mile But here up front, Matthew Baker continues to lead. Jim Treat trying to get this massive momentum run on the high side. He's going to get turned. Trouble as he goes down through the pack. Melikar spins. Another's collected in just a couple feet before the line. Caution is going to fly as Melikar slides, and he will come to a halt. It looked like it may have been Tommy Rogers in the 34 who got collected as well. And it is two-car incident. Dawson is going to send us into overtime.
Such a tough break there for Justin Melikar and for Jim Treat. Both were in transfer positions, and we were just 500 feet from taking the white flag and by the way, ending the trend of heat races going to overtime. This was almost the first one to not utilize its only overtime period, but an offset push, what looked to me on the outside, right around the Jim Treat machine, leading the outside lane up against the safer barrier, gets this one sparked up. And unfortunately for Rogers and Melikar, they are going to get the brunt of this incident. We'll go back and take a look on the replay, and this run that the outside had was massive. It's Ryan Chapman that's the pusher, and right there, as everyone's pushing in line, Chapman gets the slightest bit offset and gets into the left rear of Jim Treat, turns him sideways, and Melikar and Rogers get out of shape as well. I'll tell you this, heck of a save for Jim Treat to keep that car going straight. For Rogers and Melikar, that is severe damage that will need to be addressed on pit lane. Not much time for them to get back into it late in this race.
Yeah, that was a big hit for Rogers on the inside safer barrier. Melikar maybe wouldn't need that fast spare, but it's not going to matter at this point with where his track position is going to be at the back. You take what you can get as we ride on board here with Melikar. He doesn't even know this is coming. You notice from the windshield view, he's focused on the car out in front, and then all of a sudden here goes Treat down into his door. Saves the 6th car, but unfortunately for these two, nothing they could do. Now, Dawson, the other thing worth note is we talked about obviously that push from Chapman being a little bit offset. The area that they were pushing is always a little dicey in these next gens as well. That's right as you're coming off the banking where the car wants to unload. So it's already a little bit on the loose side, and just a tough break there. It'll be interesting to see how Race Control decides to deem an EOL on that one. And as we start to turn now back live, Justin Melikar is still in the pits. He'll be making his way out here hopefully momentarily, but at the front of the field, it is going to be Matthew Baker who is going to lead us back to green for our one and only green-white checkered attempt. Dylan Jones second, Kenny Reel third, Ryan Chapman fourth, and Matt Davies at the moment would be the last man to transfer straight through into the duels.
Yeah, Davies runs in the 5th spot, a solid but quiet run for the 32 on your screen, 26 on your timing and scoring. So for Davies, he's hoping to finish off what has been a really strong run for him. The top 3 have been there really the entire race. Baker, Jones, Reel have been very solid in this 10th heat race. McClenny, I talked about a moment ago, had worked his way into the transfer position. It's been a long road to get to this point, but he's up to 6th. Asher Little's been relegated to 7th. He's run very well so far, but looks to finish the job from there and get in to Saturday, at least live to race another day. Randy Sample is up to 8th, the grindstone driver. You talked about him earlier. He's in the transfer spots now as well. First time we've mentioned Austin Mitchell tonight, as he is up to the 9th spot, plus 14 for him. Blake Kinkennon runs in the 10th spot in car number 20. Those are the guys that are in as of right now. Of course, we mentioned the guys that are out as of right now. They include Matthew Dula. He is outside the top 10. Daniel Nanny started on pole. He's outside the top 10. We talked about the guys that are on pit road as well, including Justin Melikar, a couple of the names that are outside looking in as we get ready to go into overtime. Boy, what a stressful restart this is going to be, because we almost broke the trend, Austin. All of the heat races to this point have used overtime, and we almost got to finish it right there. Now we get back into this pattern where a crash has always happened on this overtime attempt that's affected the transfer spots once we get back going with 2 laps to go.
Yeah, and hearing that stat, Dawson, I'd be nervous if I was one of these guys, probably right about 5th through 10th. I do think for the top 3, though, here, Baker, Jones, and Kenny Reel, obviously 3 veterans, maybe not on the same team all the time, but in this case, 3 guys that really know each other here through the heat race. I look for them to stick together and try to just get themselves through to the duels. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean they won't race for it off of turn 4, but we saw how well that same strategy worked out for Kyler and Cody last race. So we'll have to see if these guys are able to follow through with that. Matthew Baker, though, obviously would like to see if he could get himself locked into that pole shootout tonight, be a part of that event. So we'll have to see how it pans out. Quick note on Cade McClenny, getting a little damage to the front nose of his Ford Mustang, but don't think it's going to be a huge issue based off of what we have seen so far here tonight. Your pole sitter, Daniel Nanny, back to 12th. He has been going in the wrong direction here for the back half of this race, so he's got a little work to do. Jim Treat going to be on his inside in 13th. And then as you go a little bit further back, Matt Dula and some of the other guys that were up front earlier, but got caught up in one of these cautions and now find themselves further towards the back. So the lights on the pace car are off, and you probably know the overtime rules by now, but just in case you're just joining us, quick reminder that we only do one green-white checkered here in PGR, and for these heats, it is going to be a 2-lap shootout. Both laps are run under green. The caution will not fly again, but if you are found at fault for a wreck in the final 2 laps, then you will receive an EOL penalty. So even if you finish in a transfer spot, you would of course have to be served that penalty, which could cost you big time. So you still got to keep it clean. You got to be careful here, and that is going to be a big note of conversation for the guys right around 5th and the guys right around 10th. That's where we have seen a lot of the big wrecks breaking out throughout this week, coming off of turn 4 down to the start-finish line. So we'll see if we can end it clean here in heat race number 10. Well, the pace car is going to pull off, and we'll work into the sim wrap market restart zone for the final time here in heat race 10. Baker versus Jones, Chevy versus Ford. Green flag is back in the air. 5 miles to go at Daytona.
Great timed up start on the inside, almost like Baker had the hand out the left side window. He and Kenny Reel will get clear and move right up to the outside. A timed up move that we've seen so many times so far this week works to perfection. It's scrambling out back as the inside tries to reel and get back going. Davies had no push until right now. That allows Ryan Chapman to jump out of line as the outside starting to push several cars deep, and we'll get a nice roll here on turn 2. Baker continues to lead that group down the back straightaway. He's hoping that inside doesn't get going, but Chapman's finally got the push from Davies.
And this high side is really rolling. They've got almost 6 cars clear up top. Asher Little, watch for the 01 to make the move. He's not going to take it, though. Decides to stay high. Now Chapman's going to start to roll back down on the bottom with Davies. And Austin Mitchell has a 3-car deep tandem. That's what you got to do. The more cars they can push, the more progress they're going to make. Here we go. White flag is out. 1 lap to go, presented by Bender's Bar and Grill.
Baker leads them back to turn 1 as Kenny Reel scrambles to try to provide as good a push as he possibly can. He's getting pushed from behind by Dylan Jones. Chapman and Davies get a run going on the inside. They're up alongside the Steel Mustang of Jones. A couple cars in the wall out back. Never mind. We're going to keep it up front. Down the back straightaway, Chapman even with 3rd, trying to get to the left rear of Reel. A spirited run by Ryan Chapman as the field works back to 3 for the final time.
And it's getting really chaotic right around that final transfer spot back towards the top 10. Up front, though, Matthew Baker's got control as he jumps back down to the inside. Chapman's going to gear him up for one more big push. Kenny Reel on the high side. Now Baker's going to jump back up. They'll crash out back, but it's not going to affect the finish. Matthew Baker leads them all back. The number 5 car wins heat race 10 at Daytona.
I can't tell you who came home in the transfer spots. They were 3 and 4 wide for those positions out back of the leaders, but the win is very clear. That red, white, and blue Coasting Thunder Chevrolet of Matthew Baker looked very comfortable in this race. And will go home with a Heat 10 victory and race for the pole tomorrow night ahead of Kenny Reel for the Jack Shack.
And arguably the calmest the top 5 have looked almost all week, coming off of turn 4 down to the start-finish line. A little bit of action, but it was, again, really back towards, I would say, about the 12th, 13th, maybe 15th spot. And it looked like it was only 2 cars. I think it was about the 09 and then maybe the 30 of Nanny that actually got involved. And we'll go back and look at that in a little bit. But right now, it's all about the celebration for Matthew Baker, who wins Heat 10 at Daytona. And he's got that Coasting Thunder Chevy Camaro one step closer to making the PGR 500. So for Baker here, you got to think he's going to be feeling pretty good about this one. Dawson, you talk about where he started this race at and where he is now. He started 2nd, and here he is winning the race. So he came in with a good qualifying effort, was able to execute all race, and that shows you how important it is to stay up front in these short 30-lap races.
We've had several drivers do just that as well, that started up front and finished up front in their heat race. Some really impressive performances. Again, we had Cody Nagels and Kyler Wynn in our last heat race. I talked about Ethan Eckert quite a bit. We talked about James Bomar earlier in the week, and multiple others. But it's Baker that gets the smoke show here in heat race number 10. As he'll advance onto the duels and race for the pole. You know he's hoping he wins that race tomorrow night and can start up front for the big one on Sunday.
Yeah, Dawson, we kind of had the running joke here. Interesting kind of battle between both him and Michael Triscaro. They already made a preset deal that if both of them make it to the feature, one of them will have to figure out something to, of course, handle race control duties. And so far, both of them had advanced to at least the next round. We'll see Mike in the LCQs on Saturday. Baker going to be racing, as you just mentioned, in the pole shootout and in the duels. Well, before we talk to your race winner, we do want to get a look at your finishing results here on the night. Again, official Heat Race 10 winner. Again, didn't see any issues there on the last lap. Should go to the 5 of Matthew Baker, the man who's going to take home second, and will join him in the pole shootout on Friday is the Jack Shack's Kenny Rio. Ryan Chapman, Dylan Jones, and Kate McClenny all rounding out the rest of the top 5. They will advance straight through to the duels. Matt Davies finishes in 6th, Asher Little 7th. It's going to be Austin Mitchell back at 8th with Randy Sample. He will join his teammates in the LCQs. He finishes 9th, and Mike Ardrey, the last car to advance through to the next round, as he finishes in 10th.
Jim Treat, unfortunately, will be the first man out tonight in the 25. He'll go 11th. Blake Kinkennon will go in the 12th spot. Carson Freeman finishes 13th. Gavin Grubbs in 14th. And Taylor Nadeau in the 15th spot. Jake Nipris in 16th. Zach Harry in 17th. Matt Dula will not advance in the PGR 500. He'll go 18th, with Justin Melikar also going home in the 19th position. And David Kuste finishes in 20th.
And back in 21st here tonight, the man who is going to take it is Austin Holsey in the 82 machine. Michael Martino finishes 22nd. It's going to be Daniel Nanny, your pole sitter, getting wrecked there coming to the line. He finishes 23rd. Brandon Yates, 24th. James Dubose takes home 25th. It's going to be Chad Dulabon in 26th. Holden Wheeler, 27th. The other car collected in that last lap incident. And Tommy Rogers rounds out the field here tonight as he finishes in 28th. Well, real quick here again, before we do bring up your race winner to celebrate, want to get one look back at coming to the start-finish line there, Dawson. It was really close on whether it was involving the final transfer spots right around the top 10. It did look like two guys that got into it further back, so we'll go back and actually see just what happened here. Watch the 09 of Holden Wheeler. He's in the middle, and oh man, just looks like him and the 30 of Nanny get together, and once they get into the outside wall, they just get stuck together, can't really get off of each other. It looks like for the most part it was just those two, and everybody else was able to keep it clean just about all the way back to the line. Looks like they did start wrecking at the end, but by that point, Dawson, it's okay because you're already going to make it through to those transfer spots.
A bit surprising. So we did buck a trend here in heat race number 10, as it was the cleanest finish of the bunch so far in terms of the transfer positions. No incidents inside the transfer spots on that green-white checkered. So an interesting pattern has been broken here in heat 10, as all 10 guys were able to keep it underneath them in advance. A tough break for the guys out back of them that will go home waiting on that crash, but obviously the guys in the top 10 able to keep it clean right there.
Absolutely. All right, well, time to bring in your race winner to see how he's feeling. Matthew Baker, Coasting Thunder sponsor of the race, and he gets the win. Baker, this is Austin and Dawson up in the booth. You got a copy.
Yeah, what's up, boys?
Oh, well, it's a good start to the week. We talked about all the work you've been putting into this week, but you got to get out on the racetrack tonight, and you kick it off just how you would have liked. Tell us a little bit about what the game plan was going in and how you were able to execute through 30 laps.
And last year was a tough one for me around this time of year. The second place in ERA, and then on to having connection issues with 2 to go, and the NASRA 500, and not even making the field in the PGR 500 last year. I really put it on myself, and it was a hard time. And this year coming in, I just said, I'm not racing as much. I'm doing race control a lot and preparing for this event, getting sponsors and making sure everything's lined up for the production. And I said, I'm going to go out there. I'm just going to have fun and drive with people that, I know are going to take care of me and have fun. And it worked out. And it's all thanks to the people behind me, Kenny, Dylan Jones there. Asher did great towards the beginning of the race. And so did Melikar, but really unfortunate for him. But, I just said to myself, I just, take a deep breath, and whatever happens, happens.
Well, a win is what happens here tonight, so obviously you're going to be headed straight through to the duels and the pole shootout. I got to think you're pretty excited for that event. What do you do now to go get yourself prepped and ready for the next round in the road to the PGR 500?
Man, the pole shootout, the names on the list, when it's starting off, I was like, man, we're only going to get about 6 of the money racers in there. And then just yesterday and today, it's just been rattling off 1-2s of all of our community at PGR. So it speaks volumes to the drivers that we have. You can put 20 of us in any race and we'll be finished top 20, no matter who it is that's a part of our PGR community. And I'm glad that we've grown it so much, and it's nice to see the pinnacle of super speedway racing come out on top again.
Absolutely. Well, Matthew, before we let you go head out to celebrate, is there anyone you want to thank or shout out here tonight?
Yeah, well, you got the co-owner in the booth, so you're going to get a lot of shout outs. Just thanks to the presenting sponsor, towing company, Really appreciate what Blanchard's done for us in the past 2 years. Flying Aces TV, Chris Carter Racing, the Watson Racing, Setup Shop, Team Watson. They did a great job putting together a good car for all of us to run, very stable and no issues. VRX, Dad Bod, Benders, of course, my main sponsors with Coasting Thunder, MBG Motorsports, and Bakerson Construction. Just thanks to everyone that I've raced with, over the past, it could be 6 years now in May. And thanks to you guys for putting on the broadcast, and Christian for putting on such an amazing production. They really are great over there at Precision, and I'm glad to have them on board to get us to the 500. And I'm very excited to see where we grow here as a community of PGR. And thanks to Mike, as always. Love that man.
And Matthew, thank you for talking to us. Congrats on the Heat win, and we will see you Friday night in the pole shootout.
Thank you, buddy.
Well, there you go. Heat Race 10 winner. Matthew Baker gets the job done. Dawson, we talked about the guys taking care of each other were the ones that have been able to find success, and that was exactly the case for your top two tonight, Matthew Baker and Kenny Reel. But let's talk about your race winner. He's got to do double duty the rest of the week, but I think for Baker, he's going to be another one of the favorites heading into the pole shootout on Friday.
Well, that's part of the thrill of it, right, is just having another job to do for Matthew Baker. We know what he does behind the scenes and obviously as race control as well, and it just adds another element of fun to it. You heard him mention the words have fun coming into this race, where so many guys, I think, are going to be stressed. Baker is doing so much behind the scenes, and I think the racing part is actually where he can feel a little more free. And that's what you saw tonight in this race. He raced very free, very loose out there on the racetrack, and I think that contributes to running up front and being able to make the right moves at the end, is just being calm and going out there and having fun. You heard him say he just took a deep breath and just went out there and drove and had fun. And I think that's going to benefit him. Certainly one of the favorites in the pole shootout. And what an achievement it would be for him. Again, a long-time money racer. But to come back to PGR and to put his car on the front row of the event that he worked so hard on behind the scenes, with all the management over here at PGR, what a cool story. What a cool moment that would be for him.
Certainly would be, and we'll be keeping tabs on it all week. Hey, if you've liked what you've seen so far, our triple header for the heat races will continue here in just a few minutes. We've got heat race number 11 coming up right around 10 o'clock Eastern, and we will have the coverage of that, again, right here on PGR eSports. Want to give one more big thanks, of course, to all of our sponsors, but more importantly for this heat specifically, Coasting Thunder, which you see right there on the nose of the number 5. Matthew Baker gets the win at Daytona, and we have got a lot more action coming up here in just a few minutes. Again, on behalf of all of the partners up here in the booth, Dawson Wise, my co-host, and then Tyler Vickery, our pit reporter, our amazing producer, Christian Hill, for all his work behind the scenes. I'm Austin Green. We'll be right back at Daytona. Don't go anywhere.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
when you're looking for a setup and a community that stands behind it. Team Watson Racing Setups. Serious setups. For drivers who are done guessing.
Swagger down the street with your red lips and funky beat. You better hold your head up to the sky. I'm gonna roll with you till the day I die. Hey, swing those hips around. Can't stop, roll back down. My ladies, short, tall, thin or wide, always down and ready to ride.
10 heats down, just 2 remain in the prelims to the PGR 500. Welcome back, everyone, to virtual Daytona International Speedway as we slowly inch closer and closer to the Great American Sim Race. Qualifying currently underway here for heat race number 11. This will be the final one we've got covered here tonight. We are excited to get things going, and of course, you are watching all the action right here on PGR eSports. We want to give a big thanks to all of our sponsors. That Towing Company, flagship sponsor. You heard Baker give a big shout out to them during his heat win just a couple of minutes ago. Chris Carter Racing in association with Flying Aces TV for all that they've done for PGR this week. And of course, NBG Motorsports, we saw the captain for them, Matthew Baker, go to victory lane in heat race number 10. And then Dadbod Studios, we will see in the duels. And of course, we want to give a big thanks to our sponsor spotlight here for heat race number 11, Trev's Assorted Nuts. A little salty, a little wild, and never predictable. Repping the brand is Jack Shack driver Trevin, always willing to send it where others won't take chances most drivers wouldn't even think about. No two races are the same, and just like the sponsor, you never quite know what you're going to get, but you know it's going to be entertaining. And with that, we want to welcome you back up into the booth. I'm Austin Green alongside my co-host Dawson Wise. Our pit reporter, Tyler Vickery, has been covering all the action down on the track for the last couple of nights, and he will be with us the rest of the week. And then, of course, our producer Christian Hill for all his hard work behind the scenes. Well, qualifying underway, but we are back at Daytona. Dawson, one more heat tonight, and the picture is starting to become more clear of who we're going to see in the LCQ and duels on Saturday.
Yeah, it's really becoming clear now. Only 2 heats to go in this entire event, so only 20 more spots are available in Saturday afternoon's races. 10 in the duels and 10 in the LCQ, and only 4 spots remaining in the pole shootout. After tonight, we'll have a very clear picture of who is going to race for the pole and the outside pole position in Sunday afternoon's PGR 500. What a fun race, by the way, that one's going to be. We'll tell you more about that later on in the night. You see there, we're down to the final 2 heat races, one tonight, one to open the action tomorrow night. Will be the final preliminary races in this PGR 500 race week. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, the knockout stages is what I'd like to call the next phase of the PGR 500. Of course, the pole shootout is tomorrow night. Before Saturday features 4 individual knockout-style races, 2 last chance qualifiers. Last chance qualifier 1, of course, coming from the first 6 heats earlier in the week. This race will transfer in a last chance qualifier number to the second LCQ on Saturday, and then 2 dual races, which will ultimately set the final field for Sunday afternoon's PGR 500. Those will be Saturday evening before we set the field for the Great American Sim Race, the granddaddy of them all, the biggest crown jewel in PGR history, coming up on Sunday afternoon. So a clear picture after tonight. And as we get into this 11th heat race, I'll tell you what, Austin, we've got a number of big names in this one as well. Notably, Osborne is the heat sponsor, but more names beyond him that I see in this session. Garrett Conrath, Briar LaPrade, Heath Job, Mike Davenport, and others feature in this 11th heat. It is a loaded one.
It certainly is, and a couple of rivalries, too. We had a few drivers that maybe aren't on the best of terms with each other. We'll have to see how that all pans out. But you mentioned, obviously, Dawson, the 500 being one of the biggest crown jewels now in all of iRacing. Also one of the biggest payouts now of all of the unofficial iRacing series, over $11,000. The total race purse throughout this week. Winner going to be guaranteed $3,000 on Sunday. I was looking at the payouts earlier. Second going to be at least $1,500. Third going to be at least $1,000. And those payouts continue all the way back for the featured event. But we have got a lot to talk about here tonight as things are getting ready to get kicked off here in heat race number 11. So we're going to start to transition now and get ready to get into tonight's starting grid and take a look at who will have the best starting position here tonight in heat 11. The man on the pole is going to be Trevin Oswornoff, who will start from the first spot. It's going to be Garrett Conrath in second, Noah Jackson back in third. Ryan Bailey will start in fourth here tonight. It'll be Josh Ball back in fifth. Seth Andrews in sixth with James Thurston in seventh. Charlie Morgan in eighth. Andrew Pileshi in ninth. And it's going to be Fyodor Dovchenko, and I apologize if I pronounced that last name wrong, rounding out the top 10.
Row 6 will feature one of the owners of the NASRA promotion, Brady LaBeouf, in car number 14. Alongside him, it's Kevin Allen in the 76. Row 7 will be Heath Job, one of the money racing veterans, in car 760. He'll go from position number 13. And alongside him, it's one of the drivers carrying the banner for Team PGR tonight. It's Mike Davenport in car number 55. Row 8, Peyton Holland in the 18 machine will go alongside Briar LaPrade, a longtime Coke Series driver and Super Speedway ace, in the 16. He'll go from 16th. Row 9 will be Mike Spear in the 12, alongside Kyle Zittel, one of the recruitment race drivers, in the 18th position. And back on row 10, Jesse Baker started last year's PGR 500 in car number 90, and alongside him it's Jim Segredo in the 21.
Thomas Stewart will roll 21st, and it's going to be one of the rookies, Michael Childs, to his outside in 22nd. Back in row number 12, it'll be a Chevy and a Toyota. Ty Robertson on the inside with Evan Schilling in the 4 car to his outside in 24th. Charles Whitehead for Whitehead Racing, trying to see if he can advance through tonight. He'll have some work to do starting from 25th. And then the last man to start heat race number 11 is going to be Ty Weems in 26. You see that 27th spot, but Ken McCullough Jr. in here as a spotter. He already started a heat race earlier this week. Well, the field now starting to get rolling. And you look at all the names, Dawson, you mentioned a couple of big ones. Trevin Oswornoff going to start at the front, but then you look at a guy like Briar LaPrade, former Coke Series driver. He's actually got some work to do if he wants to get to the front.
Yeah, an interesting qualifying effort here from Briar LaPrade. I anticipated that he would be further towards the front in the newly renumbered 16 machine for him. So curious to see how he will attack this early heat race. Again, LaPrade is a guy that started last year's Great American Sim Race in, at the time, the 88, won a dual race, in fact, last year to make an early impression on the PGR scene. So I'm surprised about LaPrade's effort, but again, no worry for LaPrade, I wouldn't think. He will be in the picture for the transfer spots at some point tonight, absolutely. A guy with a ton of experience here, not only on the super speedways, but on the iRacing service altogether. You mentioned guys like Osbornoff. I want to talk about Garrett Conrath as well, another longtime super speedway racer that will start outside of the front row. Some radical new colors aboard that 9 machine compared to what we saw him in when he attempted this race last year. We'll see if the driver for Nexus eSports can make it in to the PGR 500. He'll start second alongside Osbornoff.
And the Nexus guys have always brought strong drivers to these super speedway races. But of course, you got to make it through the heats if you want a chance to show what you got for the big event on Saturday and Sunday. So as we line up here, get ready to get going, we welcome you back in. Again, final heat race of the night. We've got one more heat tomorrow, and then of course the pole shootout. But we are starting to run down the final couple of drivers that are going to make it into the next round. So for Oswornoff, alongside the 9 of Garrett Conrath, they will line up here and get ready to go. The lights on the pace car are off as we are getting ready to go green. And again, we want to thank our newest sponsor to, of course, the new restart zone that we have implemented here, the Simrat Market Restart Zone. As the field will roll up to that now, we are getting ready to go one more time tonight. Green flag is going to go in the air. We are underway at Daytona and heat race number 11.
For the first time in Heat 11 and the final time of this fourth night of racing, the field rockets off turn number 2 and down the back straightaway. Josh Ball getting a little bit out of shape after some contact with the 10 of Ryan Bailey up on the outside. Both cars get going just fine up here into turn number 3. Conrad takes the first left out of line. It's the driver for Nexus to the left side of Osronaut's door. The 9 pokes his nose into clean air for the first time on this opening lap. They'll battle back to the start-finish line. Contact between the leaders. It'll be Osronaut. No, it'll be Conrad leading lap 1 at the line, but it's not by much.
And that was an interesting moment right there from the 10 car of Ryan Bailey. It almost looked like he was thinking 3 wide on the leader, Osronaut. He thought better of it. He'll stay tucked in for now, but that gave the insides a big boost of momentum now as they're going to surge to the front. The 9 of Garrett is going to go to the front. Conrad leads off of turn 2, but everybody still 2 by 2 all the way back to the field. No third lane just yet. Some of these guys that are further back are hoping that they can get some momentum going early. Dawson, we saw aggression early so far. That's been the name of the game tonight. But right now, the guys up front seem to be well in control as Conrad now going to pull the 20 and Noah Jackson clear to the lead.
Yeah, but it won't last for long. Here comes the move to the outside for Josh Ball, and Jackson's going to make a move up with him. Noah Jackson goes to the point of heat race number 11 for the first time on the push. With the Nightmare eSports driver, Josh Ball, in the Red Bull Ford Mustang, he'll go to the nose of Osronaut now. Some history between those two dating back to last week in the MRL 500. Started up front. A little bit of frustration there, but for now they will be allies up to banking of turns 1 and 2. Ball turns left. Osronaut will go with him. So Josh Ball to the lead here off of turn 2 for the first time. He'll have the better help in Osronaut as Jackson drops to the help on the outside of Ryan Bailey. Josh Ball to the lead for the first time, still 2 by 2 most of the way back through the field as guys try to get their bearings early, but not for long. First man on the outside, guess who? Briar LaPrade working to the front in the green 88.
And he's got a little bit of help right now, but it's only in the form of one dancing partner. He's going to need a lot more than that if he wants to be able to charge his way all the way to the front. That's actually the 53 machine of Kyle Zittel. No run, though, yet. So for LaPrade, he is going to stay stuck on the outside until some momentum can get generated. Back at the front, though, Josh Ball. Beautiful tandem into turn 1 with Noah Jackson. They're going to get well clear of the lead, but Osronaut on the bottom going to start to fight back. The question is now, how good of a pusher is Garrett Conrad? We've seen him in the lead so far here tonight, but he's got to try to get this inside back going. Third lane, trying to get a little bit of more momentum now. Briar LaPrade's the lead pusher. 4 cars to the high side, but it's all the middle lane that leads into turn 3.
Yeah, nothing going on the bottom here into turn number 3 as Osronaut and Conrad get separated here just a little bit down the back straightaway. They'll get it rolling here. Off the exit of turn number 4, it is Trevor Osronaut that will go to the push of Garrett Conrad. Ball continues to lead. 5 cars clear on the outside back to Dovzhenko. Almost 6 back to another name we have failed to mention so far. James Thurston is in this field as well in the 96. Another guy trouble out back. 1 car around. It's the 64.
And the 64 with a big hit to the outside wall is going to draw our first caution of the night. Yellow flags presented by the NASRA 360 Racing Network, and that is huge damage to the front of the 64. That right front suspension is destroyed. And so this is going to be his first and only fast repair gone for the night. Here just 5 of 30 laps in the book. So pretty quick caution here in heat race number 11. This will give everybody up front a reset and maybe a needed one for some of the group that was starting to fall back, most notably that inside line, to try to figure out what was not working and what they can improve on here. But this was another one of those incidents where it was further towards the back, and we talk about, obviously, you got to try to go to the front at some point. Briar LaPrade had continued to try to get the outside going, but just couldn't get a lot of takers. And I'm curious to see if this was another development of a third lane trying to get going or if it was something else. Either way, with it being our first caution of the night, it's going to give everybody a chance to go into pit if you would like, but for most of the guys up front, it is going to be all about holding on to track position. You can see as we go back and look at the replay, here comes the 64, Thomas Stewart through the middle, and you can see they are going to be 3 wide there briefly. They get back to 2 by 2 through the tri-oval, but then as they come out of the tri-oval, maybe a stack up in front. Whatever it is, something allows that 18 car of Peyton Holland to really close the gap. He gets into the 64, and as Thomas tries to split the middle, a little bit of contact, and eventually he gets turned back up the racetrack and goes hard into the outside wall. Very lucky, Dawson, that this didn't collect anybody else.
Yeah, major contact, or major stack up rather there for Zittel. You're going to see him up on the outside, the Harris Chevrolet just in front of Stewart. It's going to stack up really bad right there. And Stewart with an evasive maneuver in the 64 gets turned as the stack up happens. He's on the brakes. He makes the right move. He tries to go to where the space is. The guy behind him, unfortunately, Holland, gets into the back end of him. There is one other car that is involved in this. I could not quite catch it. It was a yellow and white car. Might have been Ty Robertson. It was the other car that got a piece of that one towards the tail end of the field.
And you're exactly right, Dawson. The number 9 machine, it looked like, Made a pretty heavy hit there towards the back end of it. Also, I want to make a note, it looked like Evan Schilling was actually the car that made the initial contact with the 64, not Peyton Holland. And you can see it there one more time as they come across the start-finish line. It doesn't take much here at Daytona. When you're running so close and the pack's just got so much energy, one sort of bad bumper tap is all it takes. And actually, whoa, you see the 90 right there on the bottom. A little bit of contact for Jesse Barker that actually made that car almost go up. Not quite up and over, but certainly ramped over the wheel of another car. And that left him with a little damage on the right front as well. But I think he'll be able to go in and get some repairs done the manual way. So as we go back live now, there is a look at the number 9 machine, who you talked about getting collected towards the back end of it and trying to get back out here. We'll have to see just how bad the damage is in total for Ty Robertson. Everybody else, though, at the front of the field, getting ready to get back to green flag racing. Still going to be just over 20 laps to go here once we do get back to green flag racing. And it is going to be the same guys that started up front that will restart here towards the front of the pack. The biggest mover, though, inside the top 5 at the moment is your race leader. Josh Ball has currently picked up 4 positions from where he started this race at. Noah Jackson, Ryan Bailey, all up inside the podium positions. And as you go all the way back towards the end of the top 10, the final transfer spots, Kevin Allen and Andrew Pileshi rounding out the top 10.
Yeah, a lot of guys up here inside the top 10 that have stayed there since the early portions. You mentioned the moves for Morgan and Ball, both +4, but they both started inside the top 10. Only one driver who started outside the top 10 has come inside the top 10 here, 12th to 9th for Kevin Allen in the 76. He's the blue Logitech G machine back there in the 9th position, the Chevrolet right behind Garrett Conrad. So Allen, the only one to move inside the top 10. Biggest mover in the race is actually Jim Segredo in the 21. He's up to the 11th spot, so he will be just on the outside looking in of the top 10 as they run right now, but a long way to go with 24 laps to go. How about before we go back green, let's go downstairs to our pit reporter, Tyler Vickery. Apparently a lot of radio chatter going on right now. Tyler, what are the drivers saying as they run on lap 7?
Yeah, a lot of radio chatter throughout most of the teams. Some of the teams working together, like Keith Job and Mike Davenport, getting help from Danny Barnes. They're trying to be as safe as possible while watching up for a lot of checkups. They've noticed a lot of new faces checking up very early, trying to be safe. Another group I was listening into, they were talking about trying to protect the front nose because of the situation with these Chevy cars in the next gens having a much softer nose, that they're worried about trying not to, in it, as they quote it, punching the back end of another car and damaging the car as well. So a lot of these drivers are trying to both be aggressive while also playing safe and trying to keep the cars in one piece and not detrimenting their race near the end.
And thank you for that update, Tyler. Great pit reporting as always. As we line back up now into the 2x2 formation, the field will be going back green this next lap. And Dawson, I know we still have, again, going to be 22 laps to go. But with that first caution, does it get you more antsy now if you're towards the back of the pack that now you need to start going to the front in case we see some more cautions? Or do you maybe take a step back and say, let's see how this thing races out here for 5 or 10 laps?
You know, we've seen both over the course of the first 10 heat races to this point, and I think we've seen both work. So really there's no downside, I think, to trying to race and seeing, you know, maybe what will work later in the race, jumping out to the outside wall and seeing if it'll work and seeing if you can get it to go. And if it does, hey, you can go all the way to the front. If it doesn't, you know, okay, I'm going to need a few more cars. Let's plan it out for later. But I don't think there's a downside to riding either. We've seen guys all week be very safe early in these races and put themselves in position late once the crashes begin to happen in the latter stages, or even on the final overtime attempt, as we've seen 9 out of 10 times this week. So I think there's upsides to both. I think there can be downsides to both. You could go to the outside, try to go to the front. You could get collected in a crash. You could ride at the back and run out of time and not be able to have enough cars behind you to make a move. So I think there's upsides and downsides to both. From what I've seen this week, the drivers having success, at least having the most success, have been the ones being aggressive, going to the front and staying there.
Speaking of aggressive, Davchenko has already made up 5 positions from where he started this race at. He will restart from the 5th spot. All right, here we go. Pace car going to make the left turn once again. Field works back into the Simrat Market restart zone. Green flag is back in the air. 22 laps to go at Daytona, and this time it's a dead even restart. From the 2 leaders, it was a slight jump to the 33, but it's going to be the 20 of Noah Jackson who gets a much better jump. I've seen Noah throughout a lot of leagues before, and and this guy knows how to get it done when it matters. Meanwhile, third lane already going to get working. Guess who? It's the 9 of Garrett Conrad. He goes to the high side, and he has got a push from Andrew Paleshi. Now Paleshi's going to bail that to the middle. Third lane falls apart. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, Noah Jackson charges to the lead. He's going to bring Morgan and Oswald with him.
I'm a little bit surprised that nobody goes with Garrett Conrad. He is going the wrong way. Will be well outside the top 15 by the time he's able to jump back in line. Nobody else looking to the third lane right now. The outside is the place to be. The middle, rather, is the place to be right now. Back to Paleshi, but the inside starts to rally here off the exit of turn 4. Trouble out back, and involves Conrad. Multiple cars into the outside wall. The 12 is one of them as well that goes spinning. That's Mike Spear. And there's more cars involved for the back. Brady LaBeouf is one of them, I believe, one of the guys from the NASCAR group.
And for LaBeouf, this is going to be a tough break too, because he was actually one of the guys that was starting to finally make his way through the field. And as always, timing, sometimes wrong place, wrong time, I should say, and nothing he could do from what it looked like in the live picture of that. But we'll have to see who gets the worst damage out of this. Obviously, the 12 car, as you mentioned, Mike Spear, took a pretty big hit to the outside wall, so he's going to have to go in for some repairs to his Ford Mustang. And another incident that occurs right around the middle of the pack, Dawson, similar to the first caution here as they're going into turn 3. You see Conrath on the high side. You mentioned he was not able to find any help. And the 9 car here looks like he's going to stay in the third lane. No issues there. Oh, a little contact between Spear, and it looks like the 24 right there on the bottom. And that's what ultimately actually leads to the incident. Now, what I will say was interesting was from that view, it was hard to tell if there was a little contact or a little bit of net code. And for LaBeouf here on the inside, maybe wiggles up a little, Dawson, but it wasn't much. Regardless of what the case was, as the 24 gets turned, nowhere that the 12 and 9 could go, and looks like the majority of the damage is going to go to Spear and Conrath in this incident.
Really tough break for Garrett Conrad, who was just at the front of the field. You see right there, Spear works down just the slightest bit as LaBeouf works up just a little bit. They meet in the center. LaBeouf gets into the outside wall, so does Spear, and Conrad gets sandwiched. Nothing he could really do as those two cars came together there in the entrance of the tri-oval, and all three are going to go for a spin. Conrad goes from inside a dual transfer position to well outside of the transfer positions now and has damage aboard that purple and green number 9. You're on board with Mike Spear. You see he just rolls a little bit down the racetrack, and they come together on the exit of the corner, and you see Conrad nowhere to go for the driver for Nexus eSports. He'll have damage to repair or a fast repair potentially to use on the pit lane. But I'll tell you what, if this week's been any pattern, I'll bet that these drivers try to save that fast repair. We've seen it become a storyline. Guys are learning to save the fast repair and use it later on in the race if they need it again.
Yeah, if it's damage that you can repair or you don't think it's going to affect the car much, definitely want to save that fast repair, because whenever you think you've been in a wreck here at Daytona that you could use it on, it almost seems like whenever you take it, you always get in an even worse wreck. So you got to be conservative with it early. Only use it if you have to. I mean, we've still got over half of the heat here to go. And so 2 early cautions, though, have definitely thrown a wrench in some of the strategies for the guys who have been involved so far. But up front, Noah Jackson currently leads the way here at the World Center of Racing. Charlie Morgan second, Trevor Osranoff in third. And then you've got Fyodor Davchenko currently sitting in fourth. Josh Ball rounds out the top 5. Andrew Paleshi 6th, Ryan Bailey 7th. Kevin Allen has also made up 4 spots from where he started this race at, sitting in 8th. James Thurston in 9th, and Heath Job currently rounding out the top 10. And as we set up here, Dawson, for what will be our second restart of the night, just makes me wonder, for a guy like Noah Jackson here, we've seen the aggression pay off so far, but we've seen a lot of shuffling as soon as one of the lanes prevails and the other falls back. You think for Garrett Conrath right there, maybe he's thinking back on if he should have made that third lane move that early.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, you know, that's something as a driver where you write it down in the mental notebook, right? And you start to reflect on it. If he's able to advance through to the rest of this weekend, I think, you know, that maybe you don't make that move as early on Saturday in a dual race, or on Saturday in an LCQ, or Sunday if you're able to make it there. That's a move that maybe you don't make, and that's what I talked about earlier with the guys running up front, that this is a period of the race where you can test those moves and figure out what works and what doesn't. And for him there, unfortunately, that one did not work and got a little bit unlucky with the timing of the crash as well.
And obviously when you look for which moves work and which ones don't, it helps when you have teammates, but the theme for a lot of these heats has been that there hasn't been a lot of teammates to work with, and that has proven to be the case here in heat race number 11. So lights go off on the pace car. We'll rack them up here back to 2x2 and be going back to green flag racing this time. Quick reminder, by the way, the schedule here for the rest of the week. If you're looking for more racing here from the Virtual World Center of Racing, tune back in tomorrow we've got the heat race coming up, and we'll double check here, but I believe that race does go green right around 8 o'clock Eastern, and then the pole shootout, which will be coming up later that night on a separate broadcast. That's going to be a big event. And then, of course, Saturday, going to be the LCQ and duels. And then as we look into Sunday, that is when we will have, of course, the PGR 500 feature. And you see right there, yes, the next the next heat coming up is tomorrow, right, at 8 o'clock Eastern. By the way, cautions tonight, again, powered by the NASRA 360 Racing Network. Want to make sure that we do give them another shout out for what they've done with PGR, not just this year, but of course the past couple of years. And we know they like to run a lot of big events, Dawson. They've got the NASRA 6 Hours of Le Mans coming up on March 7th. A lot of strategy, teamwork, and endurance involved in that. I know it's a road course, but similar in the sense of to what you need to win a super speedway race, and that is a lot of teamwork.
Yeah, absolutely. It actually is a very good parallel that they are working on an endurance event as we are working on our own endurance event here throughout the week of the PGR 500. A really good parallel there. We heard Cody Nagels earlier in the night in Heat 9 talk about the importance of having teammates. Well, in an endurance race, you have to have teammates that are willing to drive the car for their fair share of laps. It really is a good parallel. That'll be a fun event as well. Le Mans is such a fun track to drive. That was going to be a fun one to watch and potentially a fun one to race.
We are looking forward to it, and we have still got some business to attend to here tonight. Noah Jackson and Charlie Morgan going to be in control of the field here for what will now again be our second restart of the night. Back into the restart zone we go, 2 by 2. The engine's going to roar back to life. Green flag in the air at Daytona. This time it's the inside that gets the big jump. Oswanoff must have got an early cue. He got rolling, and that's going to push 3, almost 4 cars clear before they even get to turn 1. Oswanoff, though, not going to make the move to the high side. Instead, it's going to be Ball that goes up first. The 10 of Ryan Bailey deciding where he wants to go. He'll drop back to the bottom, and now the outside fades quickly. Dawson, that's what you worry about. The 69 started on the front row. Morgan is now back to 8 before they exit turn 2.
Yeah, the big beneficiary out of that's going to be Briar LaPrade in the 88. He's inside a dual transfer position now in that bright green 88 Chevrolet right in front of Josh Ball. Ball's going to turn left. He won't bring anybody with him. Charlie Morgan may have no choice as he gets pushed from out back. Trying 3 wide was Morgan as he dipped a lane lower than Josh Ball did. It'll be those 2 cars that lead the bottom side 3 wide. Paleshi gets thrown out of line. That's the 22 of Dovzhenko that fills the spot once held by that bright blue 81. On the bottom side, it's Ball, then Morgan, then the emerging Heath Job, and that white and teal 760 on the bottom side of the racetrack. They're trying to get that inside lane working, but it is not going anywhere. As they work back into turn 1, it's going backwards. Up front, Briar LaPrade hangs the left out of line on the 96 of Thurston. Nobody going with the 88 machine of LaPrade. He'll have Josh Ball coming to him off the exit of turn 2. He'll now lead the inside line as 6 make it 7 cars come clear all the way back to Michael Childs, working back up the banking of turn 3.
And you can still see the fear for some of these guys up front. Man, that was a big wiggle right there by the 22 of Dovzhenko. He made a heck of a save right there going into turn 3, but here comes the bottom once again. The 6 car's got some momentum, almost trouble. He got turned off the racetrack. He's going to save it, though. Now they're going to wreck. Big hit on the outside as the 17 spins. The rest of the field slides across the grass, and this could be the big one here as the 40's in it. Jesse Baker's in it. Seth Andrews has damage. Looks like Charles Whitehead slid in there. He had nowhere to go. Evan Schilling. And another caution, Dawson, and it looked like another case of a lot of aggression up front that snowballed to trouble as we got further back in the field. And now we're going to set up for another restart.
We got lucky once there off turn 4 to not have a crash up towards the front of the field. Did not get lucky a second time, though, with the cars that were towards the tail end that got a portion of the stack up as a result of what happened up front. As we go back to take a look at it again, you got more guys now in a poor position looking forward with damage on their race cars. They got into this one very, very late. It actually had initially stayed up against the outside wall. It was, of course, Paleshi, and we talked about the 17 as well of Andrews. It's actually going to start further towards the front, and I believe it's going to be the Michael Childs machine that is going to be the one that gets out of shape off the bumper of Briar LaPrade. There is his moment on the inside. What a save, by the way, by Michael Childs. But then out back of them, the stack up that happens as a result, Andrews, Paleshi, and Job come together. And this is what I mean. Initially, it stays up against the outside wall. Oh, man, as the 64 of Stewart gets turned and Paleshi comes back down. And when he comes back down, he's going to collect a number of cars that were not involved in the initial portion of this crash. And that's what caused what you termed the big one in the trial.
Yeah, and for Paleshi too, kind of at the start of that wreck, everybody's trying to avoid each other, but eventually somebody's just not able to quite get the memo in time. Looked like there was maybe a little bit of pushing there for the 9 car. I believe that might have been Ty Robertson. And again, nothing he was doing wrong either. But again, just that checkup that all results from some of these guys maybe seeing the 6 car dive to the inside there coming off of turn 4. You think maybe they're wrecking up front, and then eventually it does turn into that wreck. And that's a big hit, of course, for Seth Andrews. I definitely think he's one of the guys who gets the worst out of this. And then you mentioned that second incident there, as we saw Paleshi start to come back down the racetrack, more get involved through the tri-oval. And this one is certainly going to collect a few more fast repairs here on the night. And all that track position you work to try to make up could have just gotten erased if you're any of the guys that were involved. I look back towards, again, Jesse Baker, Seth Andrews, Whitehead. These are guys that were trying to slowly work their way to the front. You play the patience game, though, Dawson, and sometimes it still doesn't work out.
Yeah, a tough break there, obviously, for some guys towards the far back of the field. Obviously, for Andrews and Paleshi, that's really tough. For the guys that were behind that, for Paleshi to come back down, they thought they were going to be away from this, and unfortunately, they were not. But again, Michael Childs, that was a race-saving moment for him. That was not going to be a pleasant experience, headed down towards the inside wall, but he's able to get it wrapped back underneath him. In the 9 on your timing and scoring, the 6 on the side of that Fastenal Ford Mustang. So Childs stays alive to see another lap. And I think that goes into a little bit what we were talking about earlier with the Chevrolets. And that's that sometimes these pushes have been a little bit more sensitive from the front end of the new Camaro bodies. And we've seen it time and time again over the last few days after the update that these pushes are causing a little bit more of a bumper hook type reaction from the car in front of them. And right there, Childs gets the rough end. Guess who was pushing him? LaPrade in a Chevrolet Camaro. We've seen it time and time again, not only tonight, but over the past couple days. It strikes again right there after that new raised and pointed Chevy nose gets added to the body this week.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned that as you take a live view here of Charlie Morgan carrying a driver cam for us here tonight. Charlie, we certainly appreciate it. He's going to have to restart from the 11th spot right around kind of those final transfer positions, so he's got a little work to do still if he wants to make it through to the next round. But, Dawson, touching on the point you just made with the pushing for Briar LaPrade, he looked pretty squared up. And that's what gets you so much more nervous about the Chevy noses. They're just got that little bit of a curve, a little bit of a point compared to, say, the Mustang or the Camrys. And sometimes that's all it takes. And that was also similar to what we saw in the first heat race of the night earlier, where they were pushing on exit of the corner. That's where the car unloads. And sometimes that can lead to an issue in its own. So we'll have to keep an eye on that here for the rest of the race. But Briar LaPrade obviously not getting an EOL here, so race control must have deemed that issue obviously not the cause of caution, but certainly something that was not worth any further review. Now, as we do get lined up to get back to green flag racing here, it is going to be Noah Jackson lining up as your race leader, Trevor Oswornoff in second, Ryan Bailey third, James Thurston in fourth, Fyodor Dovzhenko in fifth, and then Briar LaPrade in sixth, Josh Ball back in seventh, Kevin Allen eighth. It's going to be Davenport and Childs rounding out row number 5. So Dawson, we are now past the halfway point. We've started to see the intensity picking up, but I think now is maybe the time, if you're these guys that are, I'd say, probably 10th on back, you got to start trying to work your way to the front, because you never know how many cautions we're going to get, which could make these laps tick off quickly.
I think the onus will be on Mike Davenport and company back there to start to work towards the front. I look at guys like Charlie Morgan, who we just talked about. Heath Job is in that group as well, lining up a couple rows back behind the Davenport machine. And then outside the top 10, I look at Brady LaBeouf perhaps as a guy to start coming forward. Evan Schilling is maybe being one of those guys. Charles Whitehead was just involved in one of those crashes. I look at Garrett Conrath as well. Conrath has still been working on that race car. He is 26th on the speedway as they run right now. A lot of work to do for one of the guys I had circled in this 11th heat race to advance on to Saturday.
It's going to be just 13 laps left to go here at Daytona, and the final heat race of the night in the road to the PGR 500 field. Now back into the restart zone. Green flag is back in the air, and for Noah Jackson, it's another good restart. This time, though, not quite as big of a jump. The 89 of Oswornoff was able to match him pretty well. Jackson's trying to jump up. Oswornoff doesn't want to let him have it. Oswornoff is going to get to the right rear. This is going to hang Noah Jackson out to dry. And oh man, as they head into turn 1, the 20 has got no help. The top side is going to march right on by. Here comes the 22 of Dovzhenko, but he's still not there yet. Now he arrives, but the high side is going to get 4 cleared down the super stretch.
Oh, Jackson almost got turned out of line by the Dovzhenko machine in the 22. Jackson with a heck of a save in that 20, but he has been relegated way outside the top 10 now, and will have some work to do to get back into this one. Ozarnoff gave him all the grace he could. He was well off the throttle, trying to let Noah Jackson make the move, but Jackson did not. And eventually, Ozarnoff gets up and around the outside. His help is Thurston. They have Briar LaPrade and Ryan Bailey in line with them, along with Kevin Allen in the 76. A really good line of cars. Back to Mike Davenport. Stack up, back around Heat Job. Job's going to go on the outside wall. Can everybody keep it straight? Far wide? No, they cannot. They're going to crash out back. Holland's involved in this. Baker is involved in this, and the caution flag will come back out again.
Caution out for the 4th time here tonight, and it looked like when it's all said and done, this is actually only going to collect maybe one car. These guys did a pretty good job of not making this incident a lot worse than it initially looked like it was going to be, but it still does draw the caution here tonight. And well, Dawson, you saw it playing out as it happened here. Obviously, this is going to end up being a case of desperation. Guys are trying to get to the front, but this now gives us a restart with inside 10 laps to go, and this is what we just talked about. If you wait at all at this point, one more caution, that automatically eliminates 3 to 4 laps. You're just going to start to run out of time. Now, this was further towards the back, so if the guys involved, they're not going to lose a ton of position, but certainly still an interesting caution here late in this race. We're going to go back and take a look at it. And you notice here, it's as they're going through the corner, and again, that was Jesse Baker here, the car that first gets involved, I do believe, and they go 3 wide, and it looks like they just kind of run each other out of room as the 18 almost goes 4 wide. In fact, no, it's going to be 3 wide here, but as soon as he makes the move, he just gets squeezed. I mean, no room for Jesse Baker to really work with right there. Excuse me, not Jesse Baker, it's a different car, but you get the idea here. Just not enough room for these guys to work with, and it ultimately leads to the wreck.
It's Peyton Holland in the pink and purple Ghost Toyota that actually is going to get the first bit of this and get squeezed. They're actually almost 4 wide. They might as well be 4 wide right there, with Schilling and Holland and Whitehead and Baker, and a couple other cars file into it from out back of them as well. I think Garrett Conrath gets another piece of this also in the 9. Watch Holland, that pink and purple car. He's going to make a pretty good move on this stack up to go to the center, and the lane is there. But Andrews, actually that's Seth Andrews, pardon, and it's going to be Spear that comes down and gets into him. He gets into Whitehead, and they all bounce off each other. You see Conrath, Baker, and others get a piece of that. So for Garrett Conrath, another setback for him as well. He had just gotten that car fully fixed. He's got more damage to potentially repair on board that Nexus Ford Mustang.
And for the 18 of Holland here, looked like when he did slide down by the apron, he got close to coming back up the racetrack, did a pretty good job of, again, minimizing that incident overall. And I don't think he even's going to have to go in and use a fast repair. So you mentioned for the number 18, he's got the Ghost Energy sponsor on board. He will be able to stay out on the racetrack. It'll be interesting, though, to see how much track position he lost as a result of that. It is going to be inside 10 laps to go. At the front of the field, though, Ozarnoff still leads. You got James Thurston, though, now, who has made his way up to 2nd. That's up 5 positions from where he started this race at. And no big surprise here, but Briar LaPrade has now made his way to 3rd, and that puts him up 13 spots from where he started this race at. Well, obviously, Dawson Ozarnoff, a veteran of the money racing scene, but it makes me wonder so much here for Thurston and Briar LaPrade. 2 more very talented guy on the super speedway side of things, also very good when it comes to really all forms of racing. You think they try to team up on Ozarnoff here, or are these top 3 content to all try to work together, similar to what we saw in the last heat?
I think for now you're somewhat content if you're those 2 cars. Again, both have plenty of laps on super speedways. You obviously are not going to make any kind of moves early. I think you hold on and you work with a guy like Ozarnoff, who's been so good, by the way, in speed weeks in that 89 machine. A multi-time winner of recruitment races and next-gen races over the past 3 weeks getting ready for this event. So I think you work with him for now, but later on, come 3-4 laps to go, maybe that's when you decide to team up and try to get to the lead. But you can't make the mistake that Beckett Brown did earlier in the night, where he caused a crash coming to the checkered flag, trying to make an extra move. You cannot cause that crash if you're Thurston or LaPrade, whether it be penalties or whether you be collected in the incident. You don't want to risk that. So it's pros and cons. I imagine eventually they'll make a move, but again, I think you stay with the 89 as long as possible. Look at this onboard look from Seth Andrews, the virtual reality setup for the 17, an extra layer of immersion for him as he's been right in the middle of the pack. I cannot imagine that does any good to the nerves underneath the 17.
Yeah, not the nerves either, Dawson. And boy, I don't know if I'd be able to wear one of those with some of the crashes we've seen throughout the week so far, but certainly for Seth Andrews in the 17 car, who got involved in not the most recent caution, but the one before that, that obviously put him behind the 8 ball. Still going to be trying to work his way back towards the front of the field. He sits 19th right now, but remember, you got to get inside the top 10 if you want to advance through into the next round. So as the pace car crosses the line this time, we'll see if the lights do go off. That would give us the 1 to go signal here from Daytona International Speedway. We mentioned it at the tip of the broadcast, but it was 144 drivers that were already eliminated coming into the race tonight. 36 more through heat 9 and 10 that were eliminated, and then here in heat 11 we will tally on another 18 to that number. So we're slowly winding down who we're going to see in the next round of the LCQs and duels, and then of course that will be the big decider on who makes it to the feature on Sunday. And obviously the mindset, Dawson, has to be you make it to the feature. At least that's what we expected coming into this week, but it seems like depending on what heat race you've been in, it has been different. You mentioned Joey Beck in that last heat and the trouble that he had coming down to the end that cost himself a spot to transfer. So it makes me wonder, is there something that these guys are fighting for this year that maybe we didn't have in the last couple of years, that there's more of an opportunity if you show that extra aggression at the end? The only thing that comes to mind is the opportunity to make it to that pole shootout and have a chance to sit on the pole for the 500 on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we talk about the $60 bonus to the heat winners as well as being a factor potentially in that. But again, I think if you're a lot of the guys in these fields, the pole shootout means more this time around. Last year, again, it was only money to the heat winner and the top 5 all advanced. We saw it happen numerous times where guys would ride 1st through 5th in line and not even make a move because, again, there was no extra incentive. But the pole shootout adds just that little bit of extra incentive to where you don't have to run a blazing fast qualifying time. All you have to do is finish top 2 in your heat race, and you could go race to start on the front row of the biggest super speedway race of the year. That is a huge accomplishment and a huge opportunity to maybe skip Saturday altogether and again get yourself ready for Sunday early. I gotta imagine that's what guys are racing for, a little bit extra than what we saw last year.
Certainly could be the case. All right, let's try this once again. 4 cautions so far, but we are getting ready to get back to it. Here we go, back into the Simrat Market restart zone. Green flag back in the air. This time it's another well-timed jump for the inside. Osmanoff is going to beat Thurston back to the line. The problem is he's got no help. Thurston is going to take the block, though, as Trevor moves to the high side. Briar LaPrade on the bottom. He's got linked up here with Josh Ball, but it's going to take him a moment to get that momentum back even. The field climbs the banking into turn 1. You notice about the top 10 to 14 all together, but then we start to see some separation. A second pack that did not stick with these guys, and all of a sudden, Dawson, now it starts to change the mindset of if this stays green, we can only have about 14 to 15 cars actually in contention for this.
It's actually going to be 16 back to Ty Weems, who's trying to hang on to this group of the Haviland Chevrolet in the 16th position. That would certainly change the mindset of some of these guys in this lead pack as to how they race and could change the capabilities of what you can do up on the 3rd lane. Up front, a big push on the bottom. LaPrade will go to the lead. 3 wide. Osmanoff gets split. Thurston to the outside. Bailey indecisive. Can't decide where he wants to go. It's going to stack that middle lane up. Cause some problems out back. His big push is 4 wide. Out back, we tried 4 wide for the first time this week, and the outside gets all kinds of diced and scrambled. They're on the entrance to turn 1. Thurston, the big loser out of that, will go all the way to the tail end of the 16-car pack. Osmanoff back relegated to 6th with Ryan Bailey. They have got work to do as they try to regenerate their run in the outside. LaPrade home free on the bottom. He leads back to 3.
And Thurston all the way at the back is going to fall in line here behind the 81 of Paleshi. Ty Robertson back here as well, but he's not going to jump to the high side. Instead, it is going to be the 81 of Paleshi. The 96 thought about following, but he will stay in line for now as they cross the line this time. It's going to be just 6 laps to go. Meanwhile, at the front, another move here from Josh Ball. He's going to jump to the high side. He'll get some help from Dovchenko, who goes to the high side. Osmanoff lines up. Big momentum up top. His ball's going to get clear to the lead. Briar LaPrade fades. 4-car tandem up top. Fades back to 3. How about the run from the 33 and Josh Ball on the high side?
Josh Ball, one of the drivers representing the Nightmare eSports team this week at the PGR 500. He goes to the lead on the push from Fyodor Dovchenko. Back further, Briar LaPrade with a huge move to split up Bailey and Osmanoff. He fit in a gap that was barely there, and Childs is the big loser out of that. In the 6, he's going backwards. Top 5, make it 6. Almost 7 cars back to Morgan are clear in the middle lane. When they come off turn 4, they're going to get the 5 up the flag stand from Barney the Flagman. 5 laps to go in heat number 11, and the outside's pulled 8. Make it 9 cars clear. Robertson comes through on the outside as well. He's into the top 10. He'll bring Thurston with him. Back to 1. It's all Josh Ball in the Red Bull Mustang.
And the field is starting to form up in that more typical super speedway fashion, but just briefly. that inside now, starting to try to get rolling again, and it is the 69 of Charlie Morgan. He's got a little bit of help, and this time it's from one of the drivers out of the PGR stable. Mike Davenport in the 55. He's up 7 spots from where he started this race at, and he has got a lot more help behind him as well. The 20 of Noah Jackson has arrived on scene, Kyle Zittel, and even the 6 car Michael Child. We talked about the save he made earlier to keep himself in contention as he still runs with this lead pack. Back up front though, 2x2 once again. It's Ball and LaPrade currently on the bottom of the racetrack. The 22 though of Dovzhenko currently leads up top, but he doesn't have any help, and you got to think that's because the 89 of Oswanoff needs to conserve a little bit of temps here as we start to get down to the end of it here at Daytona.
And Josh Ball moves up right there in the middle of the corner. It was not timed very well. It's going to allow Brian LaPrade to nose out front for the lead for now, but Dovzhenko will go back to being the lead pusher in that outside lane where it worked so well just a couple laps to go. Next time by 3 laps to go. Outside Ball, Dovzhenko, Oswanoff, Bailey, and now Allen joins the fray in the 76. Inside is LaPrade, Morgan, Davenport, Noah Jackson, and Kyle Zittel that come alongside. Trouble out front. Ball gets turned by Dovzhenko back into the field. Oswanoff, Bailey, LaPrade, Dovzhenko, Davenport, Jackson, Morgan. The huge one strikes on the exit of turn 4.
The leader gets turned, and it collects just about every other car in the process. This is going to be easier to count who wasn't involved. And if you thought we had chaos at the end of the other heats, I can't even tell you who we're going to have at the front now. As, oh my goodness, 5th caution of the nights. And we're going to have to go back and take a look at it. This is going to be a 2-lap shootout here once we do get back to green flag racing. But man, Dawson, this one all going to start up front. It looked like it was right at the back bumper of the 33 of Josh Ball. Obviously, he's got damage as that car went hard back into the fence. Multiple other cars with heavy damage here as well. And with 2 laps to go, going to the back this late is going to be almost detrimental to try to come back from. So here we go. The 33 goes into the corner. He's getting pushed by Dovzhenko, and it looked like there maybe right as Oswanoff got to the back bumper to give that 3rd push, the 22 was a little bit offset. So as the 89 goes to push him, it pushes the 22 offset into the 33. He gets turned down the track, and it is a roadblock, nowhere to go for the rest of the field. Look at some of the big names that got collected in that one with nowhere to go. LaPrade, Mike Davenport, we talked about Ball. Dovzhenko was involved. I mean, this is, again, just about the entire field.
It's all but 4 of the lead pack and all of the top 10 on the racetrack that were in transfer spots. This is by far the biggest shuffle we've seen, as all of our transfer drivers have been involved in this accident. Of course, the biggest damage is on the Trevin Oswanoff machine, the 89, as he had to come down to utilize the fast repair, I think, if he was able to make it back down to his box, although he continues to sit on pit road right now in car number 89, so we'll have to double check on him. He may go a lap down right here. He just left pit road. That was a big name that we circled in this heat. Of course, the heat sponsor as well in that 89 machine. Mike Spear continues to sit on pit road. There are a number of cars up front involved in this one. The only ones I saw that weren't, Morgan got away, Allen got away, and Zittel got away. Everyone else in this lead pack involved in the crash.
And that's the worst feeling, too, if you're Josh Ball. He goes from leader to the first man into the outside wall at Daytona, but there's just not much he could really do. And for Dovzhenko, again, that's a tough spot because he's offset, but he wasn't really ready to push at that exact moment. At the same time, Trevor Oswanoff, again, we talked about he knows you got to push 3 deep to make progress, but he can't tell that Dovzhenko is offset. And as he got there, it just was kind of another situation of a bad timing on that push. And as we go back live here, you still see the damage to the 33 of Ball. Very interesting decision right here, Dawson. I'm not sure if he just doesn't have a fast repair left. I know we talked about damage not being as bad, but that still certainly looks significant enough that I don't know if I would stay out on the racetrack if I was the 33, but I got to assume the mindset is 2 laps to go. He feels that he may not get back to the front if he goes into pit.
That is really significant damage on Josh Ball. I'm unsure what the thinking was there. Of course, we're looking now at Trevor Oswanoff. He has received his fast repair, but for Josh Ball, I mean, it's an interesting decision. Again, I agree to where you don't want to go back to the 25th position or so on track and risk being, in terms of, not being able to get back inside the transfer spot. So I understand it to that degree. But man, that is a lot of damage on the 33. Now, the counterpoint is, and we talked about this earlier, if you'll remember, Austin, with the 52 of Grady Graham back in heat race number 9 that had a significant amount of front end damage on his race car, and was able to maintain the pack. It's something we've seen over the past few days where drivers are able to maintain the pack and actually run in the lead draft and be competitive even with significant amounts of damage on their cars. They're able to still stay up front. So maybe that's the thinking for Josh Ball. Maybe he's decided, okay, I've seen other guys do it. Why not? Give it a shot and stay out and hope for the best, considering what other guys have been able to run with over the course of the last 9 or 10 heat races. We're on board now with Peyton Holland. That's the Ghost Toyota, involved in an earlier caution, but that car is clean, and all of a sudden, as he sees the smoke clear in front of him, he looks up and he's in 11th after being in the 20s just a moment ago. A couple cars have gotten seriously big breaks out of that crash. Garrett Conrath is another one, and he'll line up right alongside Holland. That's a lifeline for that second pack.
And sometimes this is the beauty of super speedway racing for the guys that play the game of patience. A big wreck like that you make it through, and all of a sudden you find yourself not quite in the catbird seat, but certainly in a pretty good position. Now, before we do line things up to go back to Green Flag Racing, do want to head down to pit road and get one more report from our pit reporter, Tyler Vickery. Tyler, heard a lot of stuff about damaged race cars and guys that now find themselves in a position they didn't expect to be in 2 laps ago.
100%, Austin. The big question right now between Charlie Morgan, Kevin Allen, they know there's a lot of drivers, themselves included, that are damaged. So a lot of strategies between whether or not they're going to try to push each other or try to defend, try to keep that top 5 as much as possible, while other drivers such as Mike Davenport, Andrew Petelli, sorry if I'm sputtering on that, as well as Briar LaPrade, a lot of the drivers that are still having a full clean car, most of them are also thinking about possibly jumping up to the 3rd lane and seeing if they can get around a lot of these damaged cars, because that front nose on a lot of these cars damage is going to be very detrimental for a lot of drivers, and we're going to see some aggressive racing here.
Absolutely, and Tyler, thanks for that report. And yeah, you see right there, the first 3 cars on the outside line all have somewhat significant damage to the front nose of those race cars, and the lead car on the inside, which is Charlie Morgan, also has a little bit of damage to his Toyota Camry. Well, it's going to be a 2-lap shootout. Again, green-white checkered style. The only difference, there will not be another caution, and this will be our only attempt. So 2 laps of green flag racing to decide who is going to transfer in to the LCQ and duels. Charlie Morgan is going to lead us back into the Simrat Market restart zone. Green flag back in the air. 2-lap shootout to decide Heat 11 at Daytona.
Great start on the bottom side for Charlie Morgan in the 69. We saw the onboard look a minute ago. Allen's going to jump down, and now the question becomes, how competitive is Josh Ball's 33 compared to the rest of the cars around him as he's got damage? Of the banking of 1 and 2, Morgan up to block. 1 car out of line, that's Childs. Ball's going to drop down to the inside here and push Kyle Zittel off turn 2. They're not up to full song yet, but so far so good for Josh Ball. The runs on the outside, Morgan up to block. Kevin Allen leads that line as LaPrade and Conrath are all over the place out back.
Yeah, LaPrade is desperate to get 3rd lane here. He's looking for anybody to go with him. Seth Andrews and the 18 of Evan Schilling behind him, but nobody's going to jump up just yet. Now they're going to wreck out back. The 9 of Robertson goes around. He'll collect the back half of the pack, but it's not going to draw the caution. Up front, we stay green. Charlie Morgan's going to lead us to the white flag. 1 lap to go, presented by Bender's Barn Grill.
Morgan leads them back to turn 1, back down across the nose of the 53 of Kyle Zittel. Allen leads the outside. Paleski and Jackson are his help. Up the banking. Zittel will get a look at it, and the question becomes now for the Harris Chevy, how important is the win here in the heat, and how much do you want to make a dual race on Saturday? The big story to me as they work down the backstretch, Josh Ball's car is full speed ahead. Allen trying the outside is out back. It's chaos for the spots in a 3.
Yeah, Holland, Conrath, and LaPrade all desperate to transfer in. Noah Jackson goes to the high side, but up front, it is still all about the top 3. Nobody's made a move yet. Charlie Morgan trying to get his first win at Daytona. Nobody jumps out yet. Will the 53 go? No. They're going to stay in line. How about Charlie Morgan? He wins the heat race at Daytona.
That's a heck of a win for Charlie Morgan this week, and the story of upset winners continues as car number 69 joins a couple of other winners. I think of Jacob Dunn in Heat 2, I think of Bomar in Heat 1, as guys we didn't really necessarily think would come in and win their heat race, and Charlie Morgan puts his name in the hat for the pole shootout. And you can't help but talk about the effort for Zittel as well. How about Kyle Zittel in the 53, one of the free entries off a recruitment race 3 weeks ago, gets into the dual race and the pole shootout tomorrow. What a story for the Harris Chevy as well.
And I know these results are unofficial right now, and if anybody inside a transfer spot does get DQ'd, that would change this. But as it stands for the moment, Briar LaPrade another former Coke Series driver that will not advance, finishes 11th. And so that trend does continue on. But right now, it is all about Charlie Morgan. Dawson, I think to a degree, this has to be considered one of the first underdog wins of the night. And for Charlie, great job all night. He's got to be appreciating Kyle Zittel for sticking with him. They're coming to the line. And that could be potentially two guys that become teammates potentially later this weekend with as good as they work together here at the end of heat race number 11.
Yeah, really impressive teamwork, and for guys that don't typically work together, that's a big deal to find that kind of teammate early in the week. Be able to lean on that guy now going forward into not only the pole shootout but the dual race on Saturday. That's a really big deal to be able to find somebody that you can work with that again is not your normal teammate. What an advantage it will be for Morgan and Zittel going into that race, and even for Kevin Allen as well, another guy they were working with a little bit up front at the end of this one. Morgan putting up a smoke show. You see the smile on his face as well. You know how much this win is going to mean to him as he gets to burn it down in the grass in car number 69. A heck of a win for that 7th Group Toyota Camry.
It certainly was. And while Charlie Morgan continues to burn it down and celebrate here at the Virtual World Center of Racing, we're going to take a chance to talk about your finishing results here tonight. Again, unofficial, but coming down to the end there, it looked pretty clean overall. So certainly not as likely that there would be any penalties in this one compared to what we've seen throughout some of the races so far this week. So getting right into it, it was Charlie Morgan declared your race winner here tonight at Daytona in heat race number 11. Kyle Zittel, great comeback for him near the end. He brings his Chevy Camaro home to a second place finish. Both him and Charlie both going to be in the pole shootout on Friday night. Josh Ball finishing in third, Michael Childs back in fourth, and it's Mike Davenport, one of the PGR boys, will be the last driver to transfer straight in to the duels on Saturday. James Thurston takes home 6th, Kevin Allen 7th, Andrew Pileshi 8th, Noah Jackson in the 20 car. We saw how fast he was tonight. He takes home 9th, and Seth Andrews going to be the last man to transfer in to the LCQs on Saturday.
It won't be reflected here, but Seth Andrews was given an EOL at the end of tonight's race, so it is going to be Briar LaPrade that takes his spot 10th and will advance. For now, unofficially, though, he'll line up 11th. Thomas Stewart will unofficially be the first man out in the 12th spot. Peyton Holland 13th. Garrett Conrath, that's a huge name to miss out this week. He'll go 14th. 15th, Trevor Osbornoff also eliminated here in heat number 11 as the Jack Shack driver goes 15th. Not enough for car number 89. Jim Segrito in the 16th spot. Ty Weems in 17th. Brady LaBeouf in 18th. Heath Job in 19th. And Ryan Bailey finishes in 20th.
Moving on back to 21st, it's going to be Evan Schilling. Charles Whitehead not going to be able to advance through to the next round as he takes home 22nd in his Toyota Camry. Ty Robertson got caught up in a late issue there on that green-white checkered. He finishes 23rd. Jesse Baker 24th, with Fyodor Dovchenko finishing in 25th. Mike Spear 26th. And then, of course, Ken McCullough Jr. was not in this race. So, Dawson, 26 cars here in Heat 11. We see who's going to advance through and who isn't now. But for Charlie Morgan, great start to the week. But I still think the trend continues of, I don't know if it's just a mix of this new car, the different aggression that we've seen, but guys that we expect to make it that have just not been able to advance, and a lot more underdogs that continue to impress and make their way through to the next round. We do want to take you back here and look at this replay. This is coming off of turn 4. We talked about the guys up front, staying basically single file. Back in the pack, though, Conrath did get turned by Seth Andrews. That was likely part of that issue that led to the EOL for the 17. So that's something to keep in mind. Unfortunately, that doesn't do much consolation for the 9 of Conrath and the other guys that got taken out in that, as they will still be eliminated. But nonetheless, tonight goes to Charlie Morgan.
Yeah, absolutely. What a race it was. And for Briar LaPrade, a lifeline there as Andrews receives the EOL, so his journey is not quite over yet. I know we mentioned that he was out for the moment, but he is going to stay in. But Conrath, Osbornoff, and others eliminated tonight. And you talked about upset winners, and, obviously Charlie Morgan and Kyle Zittel even in second. I think we all kind of came into the week expecting a certain, group of drivers in each heat to run up front and win, and we have just been proven wrong multiple times in this week so far. Again, my mind goes back to Bomar in Heat 1, Jacob Dunn in Heat 2. We talk about Morgan here tonight in Heat 12, or Heat 11 rather. I mean, just a lot of guys that are advancing not only to the pole shootout, but to the duels as a whole that I just don't think we had circled. It's becoming more unpredictable than we ever could have thought it would be. And man, what a cool moment for not only Charlie Morgan, but for all the upset winners so far this year in the PGR 500. What a cool development that has been.
Yeah, it certainly has. And obviously, we've got a lot more racing still to come. We're getting slowly but surely closer to the Great American Sim Race, which will take place once again on Sunday. Tomorrow, we're going to be back with more action. We've got one more heat race to be decided. That, of course, will kick off tomorrow at 8 o'clock Eastern, right back here at virtual Daytona International Speedway on PGR eSports. And then we'll have the pole shootout coming up later that night. Dawson, I know you'll be back for that one. Certainly looking forward to that. And then Saturday will be the LCQs and duels. Final shot for a lot of drivers to make it into the big event, which will kick off Sunday at 12 o'clock noon for, again, Super Bowl Sunday. We do want to give one more big shout out and thank you to, of course, all of our sponsors, most notably the Heat sponsors here tonight. And, of course, our sponsor spotlight here in Heat Race number 11, which was Trev's Assorted Nuts, for all that they do. But then, of course, our sponsor spotlights across the board here tonight. Heat Race 9 was brought to you by Butta1 on Twitch. And then Heat Race 10 was brought to you by Coasting Thunder. And a big thank you to all of our associate and title sponsors. Well, Dawson, before we completely transition away for the night, got to get one more idea here on what we can expect to see as we go into tomorrow. I know we've got one more heat, but I think a lot of drivers are more excited about what to expect for that pole shootout.
Yeah, tomorrow going to be a lot of fun. Of course, heat number 12 is going to wrap up the preliminary racing. There's some big names still to come, obviously, in that race, but also looking forward to the pole shootout. Man, what a race. That's going to be a lot of fun coming up in that one. I cannot wait. I've been waiting for that race all week, and just the mix of names. And we talked about the guys that have finished top 2 this week being a little bit, further out there from what we expected. That's going to make for a really interesting race tomorrow night, because now all of a sudden, again, you've got guys that we just didn't really expect to be in that race tomorrow that now have a chance not only to put on a show for the fans, but to race onto the front row. Man, imagine a few of these guys starting on the front row. What a story that would be for some of the guys racing tomorrow night in the pole shootout.
It certainly would. Before we do officially wrap things up, by the way, we did find Charlie Morgan, and of course he is your race winner, so we do want to bring him down here for an interview. Charlie, this is Austin and Dawson up in the booth. You got a copy?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, man, you find victory lane here at Daytona early in the week, leading up to the PGR 500. Well, we haven't got to call your name a ton before, kind of a newer face here to the super speedway scene, but man, you look like a veteran out there tonight. How does it feel to win at Daytona?
Oh, it feels great. It's just been a lot of practice and warm-ups and, just running with a lot of the guys, just practicing on the draft, the runs, and when to go down, when to go up, and just, learning the air, how it moves.
Well, you talk about learning about the air, and obviously, a custom setup on all of these cars. It's going to be very important to know who you work well with going into the duels on Saturday. What do you do to go get yourself ready, and was there anything you learned that you think gives you an edge as you do head into the pole shootout on Friday?
Just watch ahead of you and make sure that, you don't get involved in no wrecks. The biggest thing is to keep your car clean for the end. So that was my goal, and I kind of seen the wreck there at the end and slightly missed it, got a little bit of damage out of it, but other than that, that was kind of what the race winning move, if you ask me.
Yeah, it certainly was. Well, Charlie, we won't hold you for too long. I know you want to head out to go celebrate $60 richer, and you are off to a great start for the week. So before we do let you head out, is there anyone you want to thank or shout out?
I want to shout y'all out for the broadcast and doing this. Got to give a shout out to Michael and Baker for putting this on. Like I said, new to the scene. Got to shout out everybody at Dega Pros. John Ward was spotting for me tonight. Got to thank Mark Person, who's kind of showed me everything on these, just kind of took me under his wing and showed me the drafting. Thank my mom and dad watching there on the stream right now on YouTube. So we look forward to this week, and we'll see y'all Sunday in the 500 for sure.
Sounds like a plan. Well, Charlie, we appreciate you talking to us. Congrats on the win, and we will see you on Friday in the pole shootout.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Charlie Morgan, again, is your heat race number 11 winner. Well, Dawson, it's been exciting so far. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up tonight and get ready for one more heat in the pole shootout tomorrow?
The main thought is I can't wait for tomorrow, I think and that's been my thought really all week, and that's just the excitement that this event has brought, not only to the drivers on track, and I think, getting to see reactions like Charlie right there and Aaron Brown back, a couple nights ago, and, the guys that have been so excited when they come up here to talk to us after the race, and knowing what advancing in this event means. It's been so cool, but it's been so cool for us up here too. I mean, there's just as much adrenaline up here in the broadcast booth watching these guys race as I think there is down on the track as these guys try to advance forward in this event. It's been a lot of fun so far. Tomorrow we really start to dig in to kind of, again, the knockout stage, as I like to call it, of this event. We have one more heat race, but after that, we transition into the pole shootout, which should be arguably the most fun race of the week, considering what's on the line. And then, of course, Saturday sets us up perfectly for the Great American Sim Race on Sunday. What a week so far. An unpredictable week, to say the least. And I can't imagine we're done with the twists and turns of it quite yet.
Certainly aren't, and looking forward to what is ahead. Well, that is going to wrap up our coverage here tonight from Daytona International Speedway. As always, we thank you all so much for tuning in. We hope that you enjoyed, and that'll do it. On behalf of my partner, Dawson Wise, and Tyler Vickery, our pit reporter, our great producer behind the scenes, Christian Hill, I'm Austin Green. We'll be back with more racing tomorrow from Daytona, and we'll see you then. Have a good night.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
simulators, and this was like very responsive, especially the hydraulics and stuff, the motion and stuff was really, really on point. You feel like you're really driving, it feels real.
It adds so much to the experience. It's just really, really cool.
It was pretty awesome.
When you're looking for a setup and a community that stands behind it. Team Watson Racing Setups. Serious setups. For drivers who are done guessing.